It's a bitter pill, but I can still experience a culture shock, a digital culture shock, when I venture over to one of these, very walled off, seemingly well regulated, tightly knit Reddit communities. I guess subreddits is what they call them. Of all the fallen sites, I think Reddit fell the most. Twitter is still the worst, but because Twitter was never good. But in terms of sites that have fallen the most, reload? I didn't try to reload. What? Why? What's going on? Well, I don't need the internet. I can just kind of plow through some of these, Dame gets caught in the forest in the middle of nowhere, runs into a man or a bear. That's the big question. And so someone writes, Team Bear. Not even a question. If a bear attacks me, no one will ask me what I was wearing, imply I enjoyed it, or not want to ruin the bear's bright future for 20 minutes of fun. Clap back. Oh yeah, I just think such high IQ when I see the little clappy claps. That just fills me with confidence that you've got high IQ when you clappy clap. And look, a lot of praise. A bear sees me as human. A bear will only attack or kill me. A bear won't bother me if I don't. Yeah, it's just a kind of, Becky signaling that Becky can compete in terms of having male gazers. That's what the subconscious is. That would be like, oh no, it's us being victims, we're victims. No, it's just a bunch of Beckys who want to signal that, they can compete in terms of having their own male gazers, and their male gazers will goes. That's how much they derange their male gazers. The will goes. No, there ain't that many men who would do anything to you in a forest. None of these people bring any kind of statistics. But what they do is, insofar as there's some men, right? What they do is they open up the floodgates. Because there's some men in certain subgroups of men where it's more likely. So why don't you guys, what do you guys say, all of you, saying you're the hard-nosed realists because men just are that way. Enough of the men just are the bad men. But then if you're just a hard-nosed realist, why don't you racialize your hard-nosed realism? No, you don't want to do that. Never been raped by a bear, so yes, go ahead, have contempt. But only you're allowed to have contempt. Men can't, even though it's kind of, men have more reason to have contempt. Men have less contempt for women as a group than women have for men, even though men have more reason to have contempt for women as a group. It's funny how that works. I've never been raped by a shark, but it doesn't mean that. Yeah, okay, so, sometimes there's the rational people that come in, but of course the rational people have to signal their own, kind of aspirational Hercules modes. But yeah, you guys just open the floodgates. If it's fair game because some men are bad, then, in the spirit of hard-nosed realism, you ought to just open the floodgates and zero in on those subgroups of men, Doesn't always have to be racial, right? Sometimes we can just do it in terms of a man's hobbies, right? So it's there's men who have the kind of hobbies where it's just, all you have to do is tell the hobby, and then you're absolved. Because there's no way a man who's a chess player would ever do any of this shit. Man, look at it go. It's actually seeing the static. Yeah, it's not just that they want to say man is sick in the head. All of these. There's one good one. The bear choosing a man after a week with the women. It's not just that they want to say that man is sick in the head. I can sign off on that as a pessimist, right? A man taken as merely a placeholder for humanity in that old school sense. So, man is sick in the head. I can sign off on that. Or even just man qua man, exclude the women. Let's just say men are sick in the head. Sure, as a misanthrope, as someone who's a pessimist about my fellows, that's all a misanthrope is. It's one who is a pessimist about one's fellows. As a pessimist, I can sign off on the claim. Men are sick in the head. But they want to do something more than that. They want to, let's see what this is. I don't know, man. Just treat her like she's a real person and stop being creepy. Yeah, so it's a woke bear. So the woke bears, what they want to say, as I talked about in the last video, I said, covert mission, but really told subconsciously, the prime directive is to wound male self-esteem by claiming you guys aren't just sick in the head. No, they want to say you're sick in the pelvis. Misanthrope should be able to sign off on man is sick in the head. They want to say, no, no, no. We'll go one further. Man is sick in the pelvis. And then wondering how they're getting any amount of blowback. Right? It might all just be outrage bait. They feed on the outrage. It doesn't have to be like anon outrage bait. It doesn't have to be anon outrage bait for it to qualify as them feeding on getting there, because a lot of men are outraged, and I would say rightfully so. To be told that they're sexually sick in the pelvis, it doesn't deserve. Worth, oh, there's a cute one. It's worth some mockery, is it not? I like this one more. This one's better. Yeah, I found a better one. And I don't know, it's not something you can drag, you know, you don't drag that. It's just, but what happens there? What happens? Maybe I haven't clicked it, but something seems to happen down there, right? Where's it? Oh, fuck off. But yeah, it's not me, right? Something happened underneath there. I guess maybe we're not supposed to be shown. Let's see what this one says. Well, for once, he's not stoical. Like, it's always like, we're the stoical ones, we're the stoical ones. The Magas love to use this guy. We're the stoical ones. But then, ooh, for once, I'm not stoical. But you know, you Magas are never this guy, because you're all vivacious and stupid. But yeah, you know, you can just go through all of them. Because that's a bad man, right? Might is right. I guess might means right after all. Because of course it does. That's all the bear will do, because the bear's better. But man has a sexually sick pelvis, so man will do worse. What the hell was the point of this? Oh yeah, the point of this was to also say, you know, the ones who cave and even defend them, but who are not of them, you know, the men, the actual, you know, real sick in the head men, the men who take their side on this, it's just to signal that even ideologically, I will not be aggressive. I will not counter, because then you might associate me with one of the bad ones, you know, post-ideologically. So like ideologically, they need to signal how safe they are, because that's just how worried they are about being perceived as anything other. Like if they've got an aggressive ideology that strikes back, it's like, no, because then it's aggressive. That I might post-ideologically be perceived as a threat. I just so need Dame to not construe me as a threat. I'll tell Dame anything she wants to hear.
The jury came back after 1 hour and 7 minutes.
Sorority girl savagely murdered after getting in the wrong car. Now, I'm not pointing to this case to stoke anything racially. I'm just saying, you know, it's just, if you watch this channel, which by the way, I hope these, whatever they are, episodes or editions, you know, I hope this is not also copyright, because then this whole video, I've ruined this whole video because of this little add-on thing. But just to amplify what I said, because just so often it's, you know, it's not a chess player.
Have you reached a verdict? Is it unanimous?
I think the common theme for the criminals exposed on this channel in particular is they're really fucking stupid. He came back to the scene of the crime kind of driving the same car. But in every single case, if you watch this channel, which this channel is very algorithmically infectious, but it's like every time, the criminal was only caught because he did something extremely stupid. So that's why I'm saying it's not a chess player. A chess player wouldn't do the stupid thing he did after he, you know, lured her, and you know, she thought he was her Uber driver, but there was no reason for her to think he was like. Well, just watch the whole episode, you know. So she made the, you know, fatal mistake, but then he comes back to the scene of the crime in the exact same car, so he's not a chess player.
Okay, if you will pass it up, please.
But no, it's not to stoke any kind of racial tension or anything like that. It's just to, it's the man versus the bear discussion. Like if you're gonna go down that rabbit hole, then go down that rabbit hole, you know, in all its granularity.
They be seated.
You know, but no, because they're willing to be risque when the demographic is man, maledom, but not when the demographic turns into a racial thing that subdivides maledom.
Clerk, you may publish the verdict.
And I'm just looking for a sincere answer as to why that is. You know, can these people, the whatever Reddit stupid subreddit that I just started this video off in, can anyone who posted in that little subreddit community, can anyone look inward and ask, like, well, why make it about maleness but not subdivide maleness? I'm sincerely looking for an answer, because like this just shows how often there's a racial dynamic. But no, we're not allowed to point that out, because then we're as bad as the people who, whatever they did to, you know, Emirate Till, which was an awful thing. But like here, it's not Emirate Till. It's actually it's an actual monster. Emirate Till was innocent. This is like an actual monster. And you know, I'm curious about that answer, because I think that if they actually answered why they're so averse to, you know, going a little deeper into the demographic rabbit hole, you know, maybe then they shouldn't have even dipped their toes in it by saying it's about men in general. This better not be a copyright show. This better not. I'm careful not to do any copyright sensitive thing in this whole video, but God, just this may knock me down. But it can't be. It's an internet thing. It's an internet thing. It must be an internet thing. That's the family. You know, the family may get relief when they hear the guilty verdict, but they're not going to get solace. Yeah, it's relief, but it's not solace. And now they're going to read out their statements.
The court moved immediately to the sentencing phase.
The court moved in on him like a bitch.
Samantha's parents and her older sister Sydney finally had the opportunity to voice their anguish.
Okay, I want to get to the father. Because I say in an upcoming video, a father losing his daughter is the Achilles heel of the will, and you can kind of see it in him.
Into this world of terror.
See, it's a world of terror after after the worst case scenario. They wouldn't have called it a world of terror just if they like observed some other parents losing their child. No, then they would say, well, you got to look on the upside. But when it happens to their child, then it's a world of terror, stated impartially. It has to happen to them. I don't need to chastise them. It's horrible what happened. But see, it's like kind of stated impartially, world of terror. But it is. It's just like they need to have the horrible thing happen to them to, you know, get real.
My world is now complete. Nothing but memories can fill the emptiness of Sammy's passing. He is pure evil. I pray that he feels Samantha's pain.
And a kind of, you know, retributivism.
The prosecution had already decided not to seek the death penalty for Roland, and the family reluctantly agreed.
I fought for it up to the last month.
The father.
I've wanted the death penalty. I've wanted him executed. Do I tell you that I've contemplated suicide?
See, I could never do this. I could never show up to a courtroom and look the killer of my daughter. I never had children, obviously, but like, I just know this. I don't need to have children to know I could not show up to a courtroom and speak at the killer of my child. I could not do that, right? I just feel like the ultimate pussy. Just not jumping over the barricades and just killing him, but having to kind of, especially like seeing the killer of my child cry because of what he did to my child. Like, that's he still has power over me. I don't mean to turn this into a... Did I turn the volume off? I don't mean to...
Several times over the past 28 months, I've contemplated suicide.
Like, forget it. Even if I weren't crying, like, me to be in the same room as the killer of my child, like, I don't need to have a child to understand. Like, the only appropriate reaction if you're in the vicinity of the pretty much proven murder of your child, is to do anything you can, jump over any guard, jump over any barricade to get to him and just inflict as much physical punishment on him as you humanly can. If I have to be, you know, restrained, like, I just wouldn't show up to the court. No, crying or no crying, but especially like if the murderer sees me cry, sees just how much power I have, and he's pretty much reciting, look how much power you have over me. I could never do that.
Several times over the past 28 months. I did stop a couple times to look at him and to make sure.
No, looking at him, I would just immediately. just my inner beast would take over. So I just wouldn't show up, right? But it's just amazing how often the parents and the loved ones show up to the courtroom and are expected to just like, the freaking murderer is 10, 15, 20 feet away. And you're just supposed to kind of not, like, I don't understand. I guess maybe, maybe they're more stoical after all, in that sense at least. Retributively stoical.
He knew that I was talking about him. He, the monster, has stolen this bright light, this enthusiasm of life out of me. In the end, you have taken my baby away.
It's the Achilles heel of the will. I'll say it. I'll, expound on it in a couple of videos.
Judge, I only wish we could inflict the same or more pain he inflicted upon Sammy. Please, I beg you, please.
How did it happen?
And never see the light.
Yeah. So
the parking lot next to
she thinks it's the Uber driver.
Samantha looks towards him as if, oh, that's my ride.
He spent a lot of time in search of a victim, and he found somebody that was vulnerable and obviously confused on what car was her Uber ride.
She was wasted.
And took advantage of that.
Party!
She had been drinking that night, but she didn't look like she was in any kind of distress or anything. She willingly got in the vehicle because she thought it was...
So yeah, also, it's they won't racialize it, even though, at least according to this channel, it's often purpose often a certain shade. And, they're not just gonna kind of turn drinking into a taboo. It's like, if you're pro female safety, yeah, you'll socially shame drinkers. If you're pro female safety, you'll socially shame anyone who partakes in these sleazy things, but also you'll socially shame alcohol consumption. Even though, it's not an immoral thing, but just to make women more safe, yeah, the less inebriated women there are, the less inebriated young women there are, the safer women as a group will be. So see, I actually dole out rational advice instead of just, oh, man versus bear. Because I'm not in it to wound male self-esteem the way they are. And so let's return to them. I can't believe this was almost 10 minutes.
To live at random, in the hurly-burly of business or pleasure, without ever reflecting upon the past, to go on, as it were, pulling cotton off the reel of life, is to have no clear idea of what we are about, and a man who lives in this state will have chaos in his emotions and certain confusion in his thoughts, as is soon manifest by the abrupt and fragmentary character of his conversation, which becomes a kind of mincemeat. A man will be all the more exposed to this fate in proportion as he lives a restless life in the world, amid a crowd of various impressions and with a correspondingly small amount of activity on the part of his own mind.
Special note, special advisory, let's say. This is a special advisory. Listen up to young men. Younger the better. What's the youth demo? 18 to 34, but I'm thinking even younger. This is a special advisory by no avail. That's kind of the younger you are as a man, as a cishet man, the better. The younger you hear it, the better. And that is, don't ever be ashamed to be the lazy man, whether you're lazy now or later. Don't ever think that you have to do something with each day, or even the typical day. You can have the typical day be the pajama day. No matter how young you are, the younger you are, the harder it is. The more you spend that day indoors on a day off, on a weekend, the more a certain kind of anxiety is going to grip you. This is something that really peaks at adolescence. It slowly starts to fizzle out, according to my experience. It starts to fizzle out about 22, where you can enjoy yourself every bit as much as you did, but without the accompanying strain, that kind of anxious strain, that kind of FOMO-addled, anxious strain. You did what you wanted to do, but at the same time, there's a sense in which you have to bite some kind of FOMO bullet, and then a kind of anxiety comes over you. Kind of the younger you are, the more powerful it is. But yeah, by 22, it starts to fizzle out in my case. And all I'm here to say is don't ever be ashamed to be the lazy man and to enjoy as many of those pajama days or whatever other kind of, you don't literally have to be in your pajamas, but just goofing around at home. A certain thing happens to all our psychologies when we step out. Supposing we're living solo, suppose you're a kid even and your parents are both at work and you've spent a number of hours indoors, a friend rings you up, and now it's time to head out. You guys want to do something, but the moment you exit, the moment you see others, you're starting to be perceived. You're perceiving them. Both of you know the other perceives the other. And this means you have to abide by certain social norms that you didn't arbitrate on. You didn't certainly put into place, but those social norms are in place. They're kind of like the breast milk you drank, the first thing you drank after birth, those kinds of norms. You didn't create them, but you have to abide by them. And so you kind of subtly notice how your psychology starts to shift and you go into this performer mode when you're outdoors, in a way that indoors you could be yourself to a greater extent. So it is those indoors days that the younger you are, the more you'll benefit from hearing this, because it's easier to pull you out. It's easier to pull you out the younger you are, the sooner you hear this. Against the anti-laziness dogma. The younger you are, the easier it'll be to pull you out of it. It's just, there was just no one who articulated this back in my day, so it took until 22 to fizzle out. But treasure your alone time, whether you're in pajamas or not. That's what I'm saying here. Because your alone time is the time when you're actually going to get to know yourself better. The moment you step outside, you're being perceived. And there's these norms that you had nothing to do with. They were just installed ever since you could recall. There's these specific norms and, taboos and, chivalric codes and numerous social dogmas that you had to lap up. But the moment you start thinking about any of them critically, they wither. This is kind of the process of philosophizing, is noticing that all these social norms and truly dogmas you lapped up, the moment you start to interrogate them analytically, they just freaking wither. They're out there and they alter your psychology, at least when I'm walking up hills. That's why I'm pretty freaking winded. But I want to finish this in one take, damn it. Maybe I shouldn't finish this in one take, but the moment you step outside, you're being perceived. Each knows the other's being perceived, and each knows it has to abide by these social norms. And so your personality and truly psychology shifts somewhat. And for some people, it just changes. The more competitive a person is, the more their outdoorsy personality will not reflect their indoorsy personality, if I can put it that way. All right, I'm at the top of the hill. I was a bit strained there because I thought someone was close enough to me, behind me, to actually hear every word I was saying. So I had to maybe clean that up a little. But now I'm at the peak of the hill, and I thought someone was like within earshot of me, walking in the same direction I am behind me. So I kind of had to say that in a cleaned up way. But I think I'm going to be satisfied with how I put that. You become a social pussy when you step outside, because your indoorsy self, if something happens to psychology, what you did indoors, you wouldn't dare do outdoors. And I'm not just talking about pelvis stuff. I'm talking about, certain kinds of performances. And no, not the pelvis stuff performances, just certain other kinds of performances. And it's healthy to get young men at the peak of, things changing. I believe it's healthy to let them just understand that there's nothing wrong with being lazy, and there's nothing wrong with treasuring alone time. Whether or not you're just going for a hike alone, which I guess is productive, but you don't have to be productive. You can be the lazy man and not feel bad about it, even though in terms of SMV, it's always going to be punishing. It's always going to be punishing in terms of SMV. So these are kind of some of the costs that should be front loaded as well. Do this for you, but just understand it's going to have deleterious effects on your SMV. Certainly in the West, but maybe I should wait to broach that. We don't really have hard data. It's what the manosphere needs to kind of grapple with. There's a lot of lived experiences, but there's no hard data to show that hypergamy really comes down to these east-west distinctions and other kinds of regional distinctions. It could just be want of opportunity in the Eastern woman, but like so many guys have these experiences where, you know, you get to it, like, someone's nearby, and this is not a PC part, so just give me a second here. Someone's nearby, and this is not a PC part. So I think I am out of range, but yeah, this is not a PC part. It's far more exogenous in terms of your title, in terms of your go-getting attitude, you know, in terms of how much of an outside performer a man is. Like, it's far more pivotal in the West. Like, the Eastern woman, no hard data, but many a man's lived experience. The Eastern woman tolerates the lazy man at rates where, like the Western woman, it's like a four-leaf clover. Whatever else you have going for you, you're not going to find anywhere near as many Western women kind of born and raised who are as tolerant of the lazy man, who has the identical other, you know, features that have nothing to do with laziness. Like, they'll tolerate it far more in the East. But there's no hard stats, namely because, like, no one demands the stats. You know, and certainly the gynocrats in academia are not going to run these kinds of stats. Those kinds of stats, were they to bear out, would be disadvantageous to their narratives. You know, if all these things the Manospherians always said about the East-West distinction and why there's even the passport bros and all these, like, if we actually had stats to point to, like, it has to be at least somewhat humbling to not have stats to point to. You know, because then those stats would have to further investigate is the Eastern woman on average just less hypergamous and more tolerant of the lazy man? You know, that kind of the same thing. Like, an important constituent of hypergamy is intolerance of the lazy man. Like, we should all just understand that. That's not all hypergamy is about, but like an important constituent of hypergamy is her intolerance of the lazy man. You know, what is the track? Job needs ambitious fag. Yeah, job needs ambitious fag. You know, the manosphere for decades now has alleged that this is primarily a Western problem. That's why they always give this advice, go eastward. But I'm still saying, like, don't go eastward, because it could just be want of opportunity, or there's kind of more of a social taboo over there, you know, across the whole of the non-West, I guess, the non-Western world, outside of the OECD, if we want to tell it economically. But I'm saying you'll never know whether it's because of that social taboo. And if that social taboo were merely lifted, like, she'd be every bit as hypergamous as the Western broad. You know, the only ripe advice here is don't chase the bone. You know, better limp than simp. Better limp than simp. If you can make yourself limp, you know, there probably wouldn't be these attending anxieties from adolescence onward when you're just chilling and having a good time at home. But like, oh, it's the FOMO-addled anxiety because you wasted a day. It's like, no, you didn't waste a day. You got to know yourself better. No one's out there telling these young men that these days where they just, you know, are encouraged to decrease and to increase the more social outside days. They're not telling these guys that you're getting to know yourself less when you're outdoors. You're in that competitive social mode often, or some kind of performer mode. And it's more valuable if you value your individuality, which many men don't, because even men are indoctrinated with male identity disposability. So they think there's something wrong if they're having a perfectly comfortable day, like on a Saturday, and it's like, you know, freshman year or something, but they just spend watching whatever, Adult Swim. This is like said, yo, now you're directionless and you're aimless and you're lost as a young man. It's like, no, like no one's telling these young men, like, don't chase the bone and don't ever be ashamed of your alone time, where you don't have to accommodate yourself to these social norms that you didn't have any freaking say in. But you know, the moment you step outside, you know you're being perceived. Your psychology shifts in subtle ways, and no one's telling these men that the moment you step outside, the moment you're being perceived by others, your psychology and kind of outward personality shifts. And so you're not being yourself as much. To the point where I'm not being myself, caring about whether someone's in my proximity or earshot, wondering if I should extend the audio. Like, I shouldn't care if they hear me. I should literally be okay walking outside in a clown suit. Like, it should not bother, oh, someone perceives me as a clown, I'm wearing a clown suit. Spoiler, I'm totally wearing a clown suit now. No, I'm not. But like to truly be emancipated, you'll go outside and you'll wear the clown suit, and it won't bother you that people are going to think like you're a freak show. Like, you'll get the pink hair not just to trigger the cons, but like to just, signal that like you don't care if you're perceived as a freak. It's a strength, certainly it's an analytic strength, to not care if you're perceived as a freak. You should care if you're perceived as being incorrect on something that you truly are confident you're correct on, or wise or whatever. But they think you're unwise, so you should care about that. But like, if they just, he doesn't abide by social norms, like, that's very powerful, and many a man will, shudder at being called a freak when he sees like enough of the crowd like buys into it. Hello, Crow. Please don't attack me, Crow. You've been nice to me this morning, Crows. Please don't change that now. He just shudders. We all know what it's like. We all know what it's like because even just these movies are written in a certain kind of way. These whatever, American Pie, Jim fucks a pie. It's like, we get why the scene is funny because like we can grasp, like you'd be the freak if your old man walked in on you fucking the pie. Like, it's all like anyone who pretends like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never been afraid of being perceived as a freak. I'm a total normal person. Oh, look at me. My name's Devin Tracy. Like, no. There's a through line between, Devin Tracy. Yeah. There's a through line between the comprehensibility of these cultural products and each of us having at one point or another in our lives felt a sense of, oh God, might I be perceived as a freak right now? Like, freak on. That's your 30s, essentially. Freak on. And even your late 20s, if you're playing your cards right. If you're playing your psychological cards right and you spend enough time in your head getting to know yourself, not being out there performing, but just truly getting to know yourself. You're really in your skin at home in a way you're not in your skin outside. If you're in a rough neighborhood, I totally understand that. You gotta be on alert. Your intellect, when you're outside and you're in a rough neighborhood, your intellect has to be, like the soldier at the top of the tower, the gunman with the rifle, the sniper. There we go. That's if you live in a rough neighborhood. You're not in your skin when you're outside. Maybe you're not in your skin when you're inside either, right? Because it's a rough neighborhood. You may get burglarized. You gotta have that. You gotta have that rifle or handgun handy. But if you're not in a rough neighborhood and you're just having a grand old time at home, everything in this culture is set up to tug men into exacerbating that already naturally felt sense of anxiety, that FOMO-addled anxiety. Everything in the culture is set up to exacerbate that ever more, especially if it's like your birthday and that's all that happens on your birthday. It's like, oh no, I didn't do anything majestic on my birthday. I didn't get socially validated on my birthday. Oh no, I didn't get socially validated. Yeah, the more emancipated you are, the less these kinds of thoughts are ever, 365 days of the year, the less these kinds of thoughts are going to crop up. But for the grand, weak majority out there, there's a grand, weak majority out there. Like, they have to have all their life long, they have to have a majestic time on their birthday. You don't need to be an antinatalist to grasp the stupidity of this. A grand old time, and that's kind of where your FOMO is at its most, grievous if it doesn't go well. I wasn't socially validated. And it's kind of backward-looking FOMO then. I should have probably not missed out on that FOMO before because I've turned... Yeah, not my thoughts, of course. Thoughts of the hypothetical subject. I'm explaining why it was stupid even at 13. At 13, I should have thought beyond it. But ever since we came to Canada, it's like, oh God, now I got to start over. And you're learning the language, and you're making friends. But like that week or 2 weeks prior to the birthday, I had these bouts of what if no one shows up to my birthday party? It was like just all these stupid cultural setups. These birthdays are cultural setups to exacerbate your stupid social needs even more. That's my kind of, it's the Bolshevik conspiracy theory or whatever. The Jews set up the birthday so that we all feel FOMO stronger. Yeah, I understand what it's like. I grew out of it by mid-teens, I think. My last birthday party was 14. you know, I'd never had a birthday party that bombed, but I had, you know, this in the lead up sense of FOMO. Because like, what if no one shows up? These kids aren't as reliable as the kids in Serbia. Because like the kids in Serbia, it was all like, our parents were all friends. There was no way any kid was gonna have a birthday where like everyone doesn't show up, because all these parents were friends in a way that like the scene in Canada just wasn't. So I was like, oh God, these kids might not be reliable. I might have a birthday that bombs. Oh God, this never happened before. What if it happens this year? It's so stupid. You're set up to worry about your social status the moment you learn of there being a birthday for you and for everyone else. It's a kind of check your birthday privilege. The birthday is the check your birthday privilege day. You know, there's these horrible posts where like the mother explains how like her very young child, usually it's a very young child, was just left heartbroken because no one showed up to the birthday. And the mother got bitchy about it, and the mother, in the worst cases, confronts the other parents. It's like, you read this stuff, it's like, this is... We might be worse than bamboos. We might be worse than ass women. These birthday warriors might be even worse in terms of their thirstiness than ass women. And then they perpetuate it by instilling the same kind of crap in their kids. The little kid, whatever, grade 2, something like that, invites all these classmates, and like no one shows up, and the kid cries and the parents cry. And then we think that it has to be perpetuated. That and all the other stupid calendar crap. Yes, the war on Christmas, yes. I'm gonna wage the war on Christmas. Every single last calendar thing, you know, including passers-by, including November 11th as frown day. Yeah, November 11th is frown day. All of that needs to go. It's all made from the same soup. The same commemorational soup. These birthday warriors. Can't self-analyze whatsoever. That's the problem. People can't self-analyze. You just got to smoke a lot of the good stuff, and then you'll be able to self-analyze and see all the things that you are now free of and have been free of for decades, but that in your youth you just couldn't figure it out because no one was there to articulate it. I want to articulate certain things to many young men, notably the cishet young men. But maybe, you know, that 18 to 34 demo. Maybe I'm going to go in on that 18 to 34 demo. But not if I'm shadow banned. No, not if I'm shadow banned. But yeah, you know, certain of us who emancipate ourselves from these things, and sometime in our latter teens, let's say, you know, or even if it took you, I guess it wasn't the latter teens, it was 22. You know, if it took you beyond 22, even, whatever, you know, we ought to be outspoken about these things. This is how you save young men. This is how you get young men to realize they have no need to chase the bone, even with the ones who tolerate the lazy man. But yeah, I want to do some studies. I'd love to do a kind of study where all we send is the resume, and it's like the guy who graduated early, high school, graduated college early as well, like became CEO at 24, and then like double CEO at 26, and just all these titles. And you know, we have like 10% of men. We send like 100 resumes with male names. We don't send the photos. We just send 100 resumes, and we send them like each across the SMV pool of each country, and then we compare the average countries, the averages of the countries, right? And so there's the most successful 10% and the least successful 10%, ergo laziness or whatnot. You know, the promotion avoidant people. And we just see country by country, what are the actual averages in terms of those who are more or less hypergamous. This is how you just single out the study for the trait of hypergamy in women. Whereas like all they're seeing is the resume, and the countries that have a kind of tightly bound variability would be the countries where, that there's less solidarity. I don't know why I said solidarity at the end there. I meant hypergamy. I just misspoke and said solidarity. But yeah, simple thought experiment. You wouldn't even have to fixate on the top 10% most impressive resumes. You would just have to look at what happens exactly with that bottom 10%, maybe make it, the bottom quintile resumes, the least decorated resumes, and just see just how much more distance there is in terms of the takers. These don't have to be actual men. They can just be resumes with whatever generic names. I guess the names should be kind of similar. You don't want to diversify the names too much, because we want everything else to seem more or less the same. And the difference factor is just some resumes are extremely decorated, others are kind of short, not much going on, and we just want to see kind of surely not every country will have the equal distance. Not every country's SMV pool will have the equal distance between all the ones who jump on the most successful seeming men based on that resume versus the least successful. So it's kind of one way to sniff out hypergamy. I think it's a great thing to do if you're in the social sciences. Yeah, just send resumes, and then I go on. I said more things, but because I misspoke here, I figured I would just do an interjection. I don't know why I said solidarity. Yeah, I guess I could just take it out, but I won't take it out because I like to do my little interjections. But I also want to say something about something else I said here toward the end.
It could be on 22 even, whatever. We ought to be outspoken about these things. This is how you save young men. This is how you get young men to realize they have no need to chase the bone.
We ought to be outspoken, and I just think there's a lot. There have to be a lot of men who understand all this, the utility thing, and they're just not outspoken about it. They just think that, well, that's just the way it should be, or maybe they have some misgivings about it, but they don't want to sound, I don't know what. They just don't want to sound sour, or they think they have to be whatever, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, so they got to be whatever, the gajillionth voice talking about something in electoral politics, or, Robert Wright, just do the gajillionth podcast on these thorny geopolitical issues, but never sound off on the issues I just sounded off on. I just think there's a lot of untapped material here. We just have to lift the taboo where the typical guy who understands what I explained here should do this as well. He should do special advisory to young men. And it would be extra helpful if he has traction. Because, this ain't going to do it. But I just think there's this taboo against it. It almost seems like, well, that's trivial. I should talk about something more, there's wars in the world, so everything I do is going to be kind of remarking on there's wars in the world. It's no, that market has been cornered. There's enough people talking about all the other shit, even though it's election season. Talk less about that and start talking, if you agree with me, you really should, do what I did here in your own, whatever kind of way you want to do it. And if you don't, you're just cucked to the taboos. You're just a coward. That's what I'll think anyway. But now resuming, because I did more. I just wanted to do this interjection. Oh, I did some more. I said there's also kind of reversal experiments we can do to sniff out men's ambition levels. I speculate certain of men's ambition levels will plummet if we just isolate them from men. But I don't have the data, so I have to be humble. But I want the data. But no one's gonna do the data because it's just whatever, Disgruntled men. There's disgruntled men. Fuck it, we don't care, And I can't clinch all these arguments because there's a lack of data. But it's I can undisgruntle the men if I can supply the data. If I can just show how pathetic they are to, have so much of their ambition levels hang on these. Am I or am I not isolated enough from the pussy? And the moment they're isolated from the pussy, it's the ambition drops. But then your ambition was ill-founded to begin with, you stupid fucks. Insofar as you're going to be ambitious for the right reasons. Do it because it's in line with your individuality. There's some prize and you really want the prize. No, they want the prize because they want to make themselves more prized versus unprized. That's why they want all these institutional cookies and all the conventional arrangements of life. All those conventional arrangements of life that none of these people who have traction can condemn. Do your own thing, young men. Do your own thing. But I did some more, so back to that. Hey, I like the clown suit part. That was fun. I should have just lied and said I am. I bet
whoever made it that far in, I bet at least a share of the people would have actually believed that, yes, I deliberately went outside to symbolically represent what I was saying by wearing literally a clown suit. See, by literally wearing a clown suit, I could then symbolically represent the point, which is you should just not give a fuck. There's these Reddit threads saying, oh, now we're in our 30s and we're beyond fucks to give. And it's like, it shouldn't take until the 30s. Those Reddit threads should say, I'm in my mid-teens and I'm out of fucks to give. The out of fucks to give people are the lazy people. They don't get a say in any political theory. There's no kind of special interest groups of the lazy, the defiantly lazy people. I'm a defiantly lazy person. There's no grassroots movement because too many men are cucked. They're cucked by the Western broad, but speculatively, maybe also the Eastern broad, and it's just a want of opportunity. You know, she doesn't want to be taboo. Yeah, as much as she would love to have to jump on that hypergamy, she doesn't want to be taboo, and in her culture it's taboo. But like I'm saying, be the defiantly lazy man. You know, wear the banner, wear shirts. If I were in the stitching business, I'd create shirts with better Limp than Simp on the cover. You know, by the defiantly lazy man. Because in the West, it seems, though I can't say it with certainty because I'm humbled by the lack of data, but it seems in the West, that type of shirt is especially necessary. And this kind of thesis, this is my, anyone's free to try to rebuke this. This is my better Limp than Simp video thesis, kind of my spoken thesis. I could do it even better probably if I were writing, but probably not, because these days I just talk better than I write. I certainly talk speedier than I type, so it comes in this spoken form, but you can think of it as a thesis. I made numerous claims here. You know, whether hypergamy is every bit as, you know, inborn in the Eastern woman as it clearly is in the West, like that question, the thesis question doesn't hinge on that question. The thesis is, it's good to be the defyingly lazy man, and it's bad to cuck yourself and to trick yourself into thinking you're not lazy or you're less, you know, you're kind of more unlazy than you truly are, because you see what the, you know, advantages and disadvantages are from the standpoint of SMV, male SMV in the West, or just globally, right? So yeah, if anyone's in the shirt stitching business, whatever that's, you know, shirt, I guess now they just print these things. Yeah, it doesn't have to be me, I don't have to be the messenger, but I want this to get to young boys. It's okay to be yourself. Watch what happens, pay attention to what happens when you step outside. You know, I should have lied and said I was literally wearing a clown suit. I shouldn't have just given away that it's just something I said, because then you can actually picture me walking as a clown outside, saying things that kind of, you know, it's that defiance. It's that defiance. That's what that Age of Conformity article is about. Irving Howe in that article is bemoaning that by mid-20th century America, there was no one willing to stand alone. Institutions captured individuals. One of the reasons no one sticks up for the defyingly lazy man, one of the reasons none of these intellectuals could ever in a million, kajillion, trillion years come up with better Limp than Simp, they've all been captured by institutions. The closest I've seen anyone write about that is Irving Howe bemoaning the lack of bohemia. We need bohemia. The man who is defiantly lazy, but you can say also defyingly lazy. The man who's willing to wear the better Limp than Simp shirt. Yeah, that's the man who understands. We need bohemia. And it takes weakness to give in, to surrender to the SMV concerns over that. Whatever, some men, I'm sure, some tiny percent of men are just ambitious no matter what. You put them on an island with nothing but men, they'll be ambitious. That's another way you can cash this out. You can cash it out by sending just nothing but male names with resumes and seeing country by country how often there's a disparity based on just that. And then you can introduce the multiplier effect by introducing the height and see how the height effect comports with the musculature effect. And then we can get all these things ironed out once and for all. You first introduce the resume, and then you introduce the mugshot, then you introduce the height, then you introduce all these other multipliers. Because, you know, you gotta tell the whole package to see which gender is less, you know, which countries' females are less individualistic in their selection criteria and more hive-like in their selection criteria. We get to the bottom of those numbers and we compare the countries. I don't think any countries are going to come out smelling like roses. You know, Dame will just kowtow to what the girlfriends want. At least that's the black mind theory. But, you know, it's the man is well-traveled. The man is back in the US, but the man is well-traveled. The man left because the man didn't want to be, you know, I don't think I've ever heard Black Mind put it quite in this way, but Black Mind wanted to be one of the lazier men. Probably didn't want to be as lazy as I am, but he wanted to be one of the lazier men. He didn't like how much pressure corporate America put on him. Job needs ambitious fag. Yeah, so you run that, you know, for them. But then for men, you just isolate men from women for years on end. And you see whether their ambition levels drop when it becomes evident to them that they're going to be, for whatever reason, do the Duckman episode, create an iron wall between men and women in some countries, like that Duckman episode did. Create an iron wall between men and women, and then see if men just become less ambitious, and then you'll see that they were just ambitious for pussy. They were too afraid to wear the kind of shirt that I want to create. They were too afraid for the better Limp than Simp shirt, because it is fear. As long as institutions continue to capture intellectuals, I'm going to be the only one. I'm going to be the only defiantly anti-lazy person. No, not anti-lazy. I'm anti-hard work. I'm pro-lazy.
Man, look at it go. Look at it go. The kind of reaction, yeah, I gotta return to this ever so briefly because I seemed like I was too much in attack mode. There's this other thing I have to say, kind of bringing up the Thill guy without fully looking up his name so that I know I'm pronouncing his name right. Emmett Thill, you know, there's an ugly history and no one should stoke that kind of history. There's an ugly history in the US where, you know, you could say it's the edifice of why the races, in the eyes of whites, it is the edifice of why the races had to be separated. Because too many whites feared that this was what Blackie would do once freed, you know, Blackie would take. And so it's like, it's horrible, you know, racist is an understatement for it. It's just, you know, it just subhumanizes the Blackies. And so it's horrible. And so I'm not having fun. I just had to bring up the example here in particular because the ones who talk about the bear stuff, they're asking to have concrete examples brought to them. I'm legit not doing any of this to stoke that kind of horribleness for which racism is even an understatement. You know, truly the reactionary, you know, it might be true. The more I go on Twitter, the more I read reactions from many whites, you know, this proves that they were right. Our ancestors were right. Keep them away. It's just horrible. And so the more I read stuff like that, the more I just have to come out and say, you know, maybe it's true. Maybe you can't talk about racism without also talking about sexism and vice versa. But I just wonder if the scholars who first, you know, identified that, if they thought about it in this way. You know, in the 60s, they couldn't quite politicize what the edifice was. The biggest fears for why, you know, segregation had to be upheld. In the 60s, it was just too difficult to politicize it. But there were a lot of things that they wanted to say, but they couldn't. And those things are, they feared incidents like this. And that's why they sought to uphold segregation. It was primarily, you know, and even in some cases where, you know, there was no murder, but just, you know, a white dame would come to them of her own volition. And it's like the white reactionary man, like he'll side with fascists before he'll side with, you know, the kind of people who'll just not be bothered by that. You know, that sometimes white dames, they come to them of their own accord. And there's a kind of reactionary, racist white man who he'll just as soon have fascists be his fellow travelers, because that's just how much this kills his will. Kills him to see her even depart of her own volition, but then maybe it double kills him when racial outsider kills your Belle. Your Belle. Now, at the end of the video, the future is bigoted. Really, the future is fixed and bigoted, is what I should have said over and over. The fixed part is important for my theses, is that it's inalterable. The future is inalterable and bigoted. But at the end of that, I spent this 25 minutes, whatever it was, maybe a full half hour, if you include the preview, on SkidRowRadio's kind of lengthy comment on the trans thing, reprimanding me, but you know, now he said he's going to reply. So it's like, I got to get this in before he replies. At least to record this. And then whenever I don't know when I'm going to upload it. But this is before I've seen your reply, Ben, because you're going to reply now. So it's going to be drawn out. And I'm not going to write to you again. I promised myself that. I'm not going to write to you again. All I will say is there's 2 core points that you're going to have to tackle in your reply. Please don't bitch about the fact that I yell and that it's a hot and cold reply. If I'm interacting with anyone on the internet, and they're giving me something, you know, something in the way of pushback, I'm gonna do this hot and cold thing. It's nothing personal. And I guess I called you a condescending turd. Maybe you're not. So nothing personal, because maybe you're not. Maybe that's just me being hot-headed. We shouldn't be hot-headed. I'm supposed to be the phlegmatic man. But all I need to tell you is that your reply needs to tackle 2 important things. Claim number 1, it's a draw. Question, can men become women? That's like one of the core things you have to, you know, account for. I'm right when I say it's a draw. Because of modern medicine, they can become women. And women can become men. Anatomically, phenotypically, I think it's a fool's errand to think that, you know, there's something that can be done here. So I'm not even making any kind of robust identification, you know, self-identification based claims. I understand that's what the activists do, and, you know, it goes unquestioned in their little circle jerks. But it doesn't go unquestioned in most of the country. Right? The most people should do is just take my advice here, understand that I'm right when I say it's a draw. It's a draw. Can men become women? Can women become men? Can people transition? Clearly, if you understand, there's an anatomical component to gender. It's not just psychological, it's not just phenotypic. There's an anatomical component to gender. People can transition insofar as modern medicine works wonders. Insofar as a woman with tiny tits, what does Cartman call them? They're called something, you know, and likewise, a man can get one of these surgeries to get rid of his moobs. I think that's what Dwayne did, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. So The Rock no longer had moobs. He no longer had the thing hanging because he had a surgery. Likewise, there's breast enhancement surgery. So like the dame who now has double D breasts, like it's true she has double D breasts or whatever the cup size that she opted for. And likewise, anatomically, the genders can transition. Another claim, kind of 1.5, is that nature can err in the production of the sexes insofar as not accounting for individual psychological preference. Nature can err. All these stratcons that I keep going off of, they can't seem to understand. Nature can err on this. It can err with, you know, amputees and whatever, mental health disorders. Oh, but mental health disorders are cultural, you know. Overlap. There's your overlap between, you know, the reactionaries and the hardcore progs. You know, they'll say it's, you know, in their own way, they'll say it's constructed, and then the cons will say it's cultural, it's liberalism. Liberalism is why people have mental disorders. No, people have mental disorders because fucking nature errs. And one of the things nature can err in is the production of the sexes. When people just feel like they don't fit, right? So some people feel like they don't fit, they get these sex change operations. You know, maybe phenotypically, but like if you watched Murray, like a lot of times you do answer wrong. You know, is it a woman or not? Is it a man or not? Like you do just answer wrong. Modern medicine works wonders. That's a component of, you know, what gender is. It's not everything gender is, but it's like at least half is, you know, how you look. Do you look like the gender? And so I guess that bleeds into, you know, kind of the second prong of this 2-prong thing that you have to account for is that, you know, like there's a lot of really primitive people who insist that like even Blaire White, like that's just a guy, that's just a guy. You're supposed to look at Blaire White and you're supposed to say, that's just a guy. But it's just the case that I don't just see a guy, right? And it's not because I feel like I have to respect Blaire White. I think Blaire White is a contemptible person. But it's not just a guy that I see. When I look at Blaire White, I see trans Dame. And that's nothing wrong with me. Anyone who insists to see a guy there, there's an irrational resentment there because they need to serve the species as well. They need to serve the species. And this complicates matters. If they can't just say, because they know Blaire White is trans, they can't just say, I see a guy, right? Well, they want to say it, but it's not justified to say it. When you look at Blaire White or someone who goes that far, you're supposed to say, I see trans Dame. And it's contemptible in that particular case. So account for those 2.5 statements in your reply. I see trans Dame. I see trans Dame. I'm such a good ally. I appropriate memes to denote struggles of the trans. Because I see trans Dame. But I am an ally. I'm an ally compared to SkidRowRadio, at least. I see trans Dame. Or was that I seed trans Dame, as in concede? No, not the seed with the S. It's the seed with the E at the end and the C at the start. That one. Yeah, I seed. It's a trans Dame. I seed it. No, it's just what I see. It's true. But, in some images I see it more than in others, like in the heavily makeup images. Yes, I see trans Dame more than in others where there's less makeup, or heaven forbid, no makeup. Because when there's no makeup, then, it's like sometimes you just don't know what you see. There were a few here without any makeup. And in that case, yeah, it gets a bit gnarly. But when there's like a lot of makeup, then yes, you have to seed that you see trans Dame. But, you can say that's the case with the ordinary dames too. The more makeup, the more, is that, oh, so it's, I wonder if Destiny lent Blaire White his rifle. Nah, they probably don't like each other. But yeah, I see trans, is that still the same? Yeah, that's still Blaire. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, that's putting in the effort. And in America, you put in the effort, that's all we care about. It's equal outcomes as long as we know that you worked hard for it. Then it's equal outcomes. All that matters is that you worked hard. So there's Blaire White working hard, working overtime, so that, those of us who are open-minded enough can see Dame. But the makeup does help. But, even in the ordinary cases for dames, the makeup helps a lot. It's why they still wear it. It's why they so overconsume on the makeup. I'm just reporting the facts. I don't have some alternative agenda with the facts. I'm just reporting it. Makeup always helps. Whether they're trans or not, makeup helps. Old school Rubin. I don't think he would be polite. I think he knows nowadays, right? That was an awful thing he said in the last video with the balaclava and calling those lovely gals cows. He was awful, but he's also really, as awful as he really is. It's true what they say. As awful as he is, he's just that much stupider. Another guy I'd love to corner in a one-on-one and see if he can wiggle his way out of all the kinds of points I like to make. But yeah, that was then. But these days, I don't think he would platform. These days, it's too much of a risk, because this is like several years ago. Yeah, he doesn't look as slick, because this was he looks slicker now. But yeah, the whole, audience capture thing, the audience that he's been captured by, yeah, they've got zero talk. They're deranged. Even the one that spouts all their talking points, but then says, but I'm still trans. It's like they would say, no, it doesn't matter that you spout all our talking points. Just the fact that you're doing this. Like if it's his audience, they're just absolutely unraveled. Anyway, I'm doing this, but I need to get to Ben's response, because of course Ben responded. Oh, Ben responded before I even freaking recorded that. Like he uploaded his response 7 hours before I even started recording that little thing. But now I have to get to his response. But like if that ain't Dame on the surface, I don't know what is.
As you can see, Aurora, my crew can use a little R&R.
It's our pleasure.
Come, chicken. Look, man. Does this mean the sex is off?
Oh, look at that. I should just stay here. I should just stay here, but I can't stay here because I gotta do Ben. Ben did. I don't want to complain because I'm long-winded too, but Ben did well over an hour. What was it? Nearly 2 hours. And it's a response. You know, you start watching it and like within 15 seconds, he's disagreeing with me on stuff that I didn't even think he would disagree with me on. He wants to be an optimist about the future quad bigotry. And he's already like I thought this would be uncontroversial, but I'm like, okay, I have to stop this. But now it's like, it's evening, you know? And so I got to do Ben. I queued Ben up, but you know, where I left it off. But it's like, even there, come on, man. Anyway, so much for that. Let's do Ben a courtesy. Let's do Ben a courtesy. But I have to snub because what is it? Oh Lord, yeah, just under 2. Well, I will watch all of this, but Ben, I gotta say.
So negative, man.
Yeah.
Come on, we'll get there in the end. We shall win.
I'm gonna have to snub most of this at least. Maybe I might type too. I might go back to typing, even though I swore I wouldn't.
We shall prevail. It's looking quite bigoted at the minute, but there's a lot of focus being put on bigotry, I think, to make us believe that division is more rife than it actually is. I think there's a lot more people in the world accepting of, tolerant of, peaceful with their neighbours that are different from them. But at the minute...
Yeah, I guess it was just a brute assertion on my part, you know, and so he's doing kind of a brute assertion too, so it's, you know, it's a stalemate. It's another stalemate. But, you know, I might be inclined one of these days to just statistically, you know, see if I can do a foolproof statistical counter to this, you know. Like, why is restrictivism or restrictionism, why is it as popular, you know, and like, why is Orban successful and why is the other one, you know, who they call authoritarian? It's all these strongmen on the border. Like, why are the strongmen on the border so successful across, you know, especially Eastern Europe, it seems, Central Eastern Europe? You know, this resurgent nativism, it's politically popular, right? It's, even though there's, you know, institutional pressure against it, it still strives to overhaul the institutional pressure. Just the border stuff. You know, people want their co-nationals to be alike, it seems. It doesn't mean they want to be ruinous of others. It's just like within the nation, it matters that we're all alike. And the looks front, or if you believe race is real, and you know, whatever, important phenotypic type.
Focus being put upon those that are not. This setup is not going to be ideal. I wanted to have both visuals on screen at the same time, but it's just going to have to be.
Don't worry about it.
Hear the audio from the video.
Don't worry about it, Ben.
Yeah, this video starts out with footage from my hometown, Middlesbrough, in the northeast of England, and it is not flattering. You're going to have to pause to respond to anything because you're not going to be able to hear my voice over the video the way that I'm doing this.
Oh, he's going to play me. Oh, God.
So, yeah, that's just it.
I haven't. Oh, man, he's doing it all. He's doing all of it.
Everyone needs to watch.
He's doing all of it.
Speak to that, what he said a little bit. This, you know, this seemingly intellectually challenged fella that has been interviewed on the street in Middlesbrough. There is actually a very high percentage of African care workers at the minute in this country. And it isn't out of some...
Man, I thought he'd go straight to the kill. What is it in his view is kill? You know, that I said it's a draw. I thought he'd go straight for the kill, but he's going to do me the courtesy of everything. I only wish I were so generous. It's just been like, you see what else, everything else I'm doing here. Yeah, I'll do more, but it'll go in future videos, but maybe not right away, because every future video that's kind of 7 videos from now is chock full too. So Ben, like maybe 8 videos from now, you guys will see more of this. Because I thought he'd go straight for the kill on the trans stuff. I'm supposed to be... I'm playing for the wrong team, according to him, on the trans stuff. But then he also said we agree, because that... But, you know, he... You know, he's a little... I want to say TERF-y. He's a little too TERF-y. Attitudinally. You know, you could be TERF-y legally, but I think he's TERF-y just attitudinally. I think it's the Radfem influence, but you know, I'm speculating again. But let's do a bit more.
Sort of benevolent, love thy neighbour scheme to help the Africans get jobs. It's because not enough people in this country are applying for those jobs. The pay is terrible, the conditions are terrible, the workers' rights within the sector have been damaged.
What percent of the market should be subject to price controls when things get out of hand? Like let's say it's like over 50% of what's normally just private stuff. Let's say it's just this, gouging or whatever. Like, how often would you endorse the price controls? Like, we see this kind of communism right now in the U.S. They're calling her a communist because she does want to introduce these, what was it? I think something about insulin. You see, I tend to think that, that's short-term gains for long-term pains. Classical libs more or less have the kind of historical, they can point to things historically on that. Yeah, short-term gains, long-term pains, a lot of other things, they'll just spike the prices to whatever you're trying to avoid ultimately. So yeah, price controls are stupid, but yeah, we probably disagree on that.
But it's mainly the pay. The pay is terrible. It can be very emotional, very draining, difficult work. And so not enough native-born people are applying for those jobs. So the NHS actually recently literally had a programme to ship in thousands and thousands of African nurses onto NHS wards because there are not enough applicants from this country. They wouldn't have gone to those great lengths to import, and all the logistics involved with that, to import thousands of African nurses if they'd had enough decent applicants.
Take that it's the Jews who caused all this, it's the whatever scheme. No, Skid just swatted you guys like a fly just a second ago. It's not as simple as the conspiracy tards are saying. Must be a plot, the great replacement plot.
Those positions, but they're not getting them. So
you guys just refuse to deal with difficult issues like he just outlined.
And what's actually occurring there, of course, is that those lower standards of pay, of workers' rights...
or so he says. Like, who knows? Like, did he... I don't know. Let's see if he... well, like last video, I was just flabbergasted that he linked nothing in the video. Like, he just makes so many, he makes these Skid since 2020, man. Skid makes them wild, but I dare not go down that because then he'll do a video twice as long lecturing me if I get into the weeds of his, his homespun stuff. Okay, so yeah, no. But yeah, like I'm watching his reaction to the election thing, and it's just like so many wild claims that I'm like, oh, well, there's nothing to back it up, right? But maybe he won't make any of those wild claims here. Can I do this? Can I bring him back up?
Of incentives are maintained. You don't have to raise the pay to fill the posts if you're filling those posts of those badly paid jobs with immigrants that are more desperate.
Yeah, he's just perfectly sober stuff, Ben.
For work, to put it bluntly. And
we just might end up allies after all.
To people who may feel like that low wage.
But then again, we just might not. If I just go here, 331. If I just go here, or maybe if I just go here, we might. It just may go bloody.
Those procedures to feel.
I'll go back though, Ben. I'll go back. 331. I know.
And it's a very modern solution to something that, like I said, if it was a basic human anomaly, psychological anomaly, whatever you want to call it, this is a very arrogant, modern pharmaceutical, medical interventionalist solution to it. So, we can change your life. We can fix your anxiety and your stress and your discontent by chopping this bit off there, putting this bit on there, glue that there, sellotape this.
Well, not for the children, Children, it's just another one of those things. We don't let them drink, we don't let them drive, and we can lump this into one of those things we don't let them do, but I've only ever heard secondhand accounts of all those medical controversies. So just, take what I say with a grain of salt. Maybe he's more well-read on it. I wouldn't swear by what I think is right on this. But yeah, I say we don't let him drink, we don't let him drive, and that should probably be even longer because they're still extremely horny at 18. No, I say push it back, the drinking and the driving, but, give him more school freedom, more freedom from school, less freedom to drive and less freedom to drink, but more freedom from schoolwork. I'm derailing. But yeah, Ben's kind of going off on the, over-eager interventionists and, puberty blocker pill recommendationists and all that stuff. So we agree. But maybe he'll chastise me any second now.
You'll be fine. Job done. It's very arrogant. It doesn't seem to be a lot of focus on mindfulness, on going back to something that is genderless, which is just for want of a better word, your soul, your awareness, your consciousness. Consciousness is not gendered, right? There's no such thing as, I use a religious word, there's no such thing as a male soul, female soul, right? Your awareness.
Well, there are these, het norms. They're kind of prevalent in each society. And so, like, if you're born with the parts that say you ought to play a specific kind of role, and you have a sexual psyche to you, which Freud and the rest of them, just talked about how, foundational that sexual psyche is to carve out a lot of the other things that we do just in terms of motivation, to motivate it, all that stuff, all that Freudian stuff, right? So it's like, insofar as there's these het norms, like, there's these two body types that will, comport to, the binary. And so that's kind of a constant. And so you can see how that would shape psychology. And yes, maybe the monk can transcend it or, just fully emancipate themselves from it, the monk. But yeah, most people fall short of the monk. So like, why aren't trans people as well allowed to fall short of monk mode if, like, we see the typical het people fall short of monk mode, right? Because, like, if you're just, like, the reason people hate to age is because, the aging, just the grotesqueness of aging, you're going to look grotesque when you hit 90. A few of you who hit 90, look anything other than grotesque. Like, it's a commentary on how far you are removed from begetting and conceiving, And so it's just, people don't want to become that. People, when they're young, they look at that as like, oh God, I don't want to become that. So it has a pull psychologically, and it has a pull psychologically on the trans, but for inverted reasons than those het reasons. So it's like, if you say the trans should rise above needing to be trans, like, you're telling people to rise above their fear of aging. There's just these things that, especially the Volk, they're not going to be able to rise above. Would either one of us be able to do the monk thing? I don't know. I don't think so. I was going to receive some bounty after doing it for like 5 years. Would I be able to live the monk life if I literally didn't have to, but there was a big bounty at the end of it? I don't think I would. What am I doing?
Is the same as the awareness of someone of the opposite sex. And that is a more basic connection with being than your physical body. I'm bald, I have a big stupid nose, I have a weak jawline. These aren't things that define my consciousness or awareness. My experience of awareness is deeper than the superficial physicalities.
Ben is post-lookist, and he's kind of post-lookist psychologically, he's saying here, right? And so I'd love if he would, like, be willing to subject himself to a psychological experiment where they can suss out the fact that he's still lookist, not because he wants to be an ass or anything, but just because it's woven. Lookism and kind of self-schema, qua-lookism is woven. It's not just a outer detector. But Ben's saying he's post-lookist psychologically. But I'm like, okay, I wish you could be a lab rat. I wish you could be a lab rat. Because this is yet another thing that the typical person overestimates in. It's like, oh, most people are more lookist than me. That's kind of, there's the above average effect. Most doctors will say they're above average. Like 85% of doctors will say they're in the top 50%, statistical impossibility. And a lot of people think they're more non-lookist than they are. So I'd love for you to be a lab rat.
That I inhabit this body that I inhabit, right?
But, I wouldn't rule it out that you'd beat the test. Maybe you would. Maybe you are that. Maybe this is more than just decorative stuff. Maybe this is how he sees the world. I tend to see the world in film noir tint. I tend to see the world in film noir. Ben seems to see the world in a whole different type of tint. But I see the world. I see that. I see the grayscale.
So these responses, these surgical responses to people's deep feeling of unrest that may or may...
That's probably why I say dame all the time.
may not come from a disparity between how they feel and how their body is. There's a whole smorgasbord of interplaying and interlinking reasons why people feel disconnected, uncomfortable, anxious, stressed. And this is actually plays into another statistic about trying.
It's because to get ahead, you got to make yourself appear invulnerable. Not like glaringly, but just passively. You're invulnerable. You're invulnerable during the recruitment project. You got to outcompete all these things. It's adaptive. It's adaptive to try to appear invulnerable, but that creates all kinds of in the worst case, tensions, and in other case, kind of estrangement to our core selves from each other. Is that constant, flex to get ahead. Yes, many a man has to flex to get ahead. But yeah, it breeds either resentment or just estrangement.
Identifying people. There is a hugely disproportionate number of trans-identifying people.
And it's probably why I liked Austin so much when I was watching wrestling. Because yeah, Austin was DTA, don't trust anybody. Yeah, I was like 13 years old. Yeah, don't trust anybody. What is it? Yeah, the actual kinds of rugged individualism is Austin's DTA, don't trust anybody. Yeah, in film noir tint.
On the spectrum. So that have either learning disorders or, I've forgotten what the umbrella term is, on the spectrum basically. So people with those types of diagnoses.
But has Ben conflating other kinds of personality disorders now and trying to reduce the trans ones to all those other ones and thereby engage in trans erasure? Ben? Skid? Buddy? One of your first video replies to me from Spain, like back in 2010. Man, we've done it all. We've done it all. But Skid, are you trying to do trans erasure? Is that the end goal? Is a trans category to be erasured on? Like I would say all these stupid generational categories, like I'm supposed to think of some people as boomers and others as Gen Xers and myself as a millennial. Like I don't fucking think of myself as a millennial. I'm in favor of erasure when it comes to all those stupid generational categories. Ben, are you in favor of trans erasure? I guess I'll just have to keep watching to find out. Because so far we mostly agree. But yeah, good seeing you, and I'll enjoy the rest of this. But this is like almost 17 minutes. I'm sorry, man. Everything's filled to the brim. I'll see you 8 videos from now or something like that. But probably like 12 because I'll keep recording new stuff. Man, I see the world in a whole different type of tint. But I see the world. I see that. I see the grayscale. Yeah, but credit should go to Ben because let the irony be lost on no one. Ben's going harder on the, better limp than simp thing. Not necessarily simp, but, better limp than to have to transition. That's kind of Ben's inversion of my video title here is, I'm just saying, better limp than simp. Ben's saying, better limp than be aspirationally trans. So in his own ways, he's kind of going stronger on the better limp message than even I am. So I guess credit has to be given. But yeah, more on you later.
And to be honest, I feel like a lot of your videos go over my head. I'm not a political scientist
I'm not either. I just use slang and I talk about a lot of niche, internet scene stuff, right? I don't know. Like, have I gotten you into Destiny yet? I should have gotten you into the whole Destiny scene by now. But yeah, no, I'm less technical than I was, certainly like 5 or even 10 years ago. I'm less technical these days. I just use slang. So my slang is not like, political science knowledge.
I don't even know what a lot of stuff you talk about goes over my head. So
no, it's just niche, and you got to know these characters that I kind of follow these days. Mostly Destiny.
I don't feel like I can...
You've got more kind of political cred locally there because you got invited to like that talk show a handful of times, right? It's like no one's inviting me to any talk shows locally here, so I don't need any deference paid to me. You've got, you're a bit of a figure. You're a bit of a, character politically, locally. I'm not. I couldn't get elected dog catcher.
I'll watch that. I'm sure we'll agree on a lot of it. Again, I really regret getting off onto a bad foot.
Don't worry about it.
I've obviously made you feel like I was directing this at you as if you need to hear it, as if you didn't already understand a lot of the stuff I'm saying. That's my bad. I'm really regretful for that, and I hope you can...
Not even worthy of forgiveness. I'm just, it just helps me kind of when I let loose and when I can raise my voice and not worry about it. It helps me rant and it helps me say the things I actually want to say. If I can just be a little cantankerous, it helps. I don't know why, there's people who are every bit as articulate when they're just, monotone voice. I don't know, I feel like it's a straitjacket. The proper tonal thing is a straitjacket for me, so don't even worry about it. But yeah, I did kind of think you were lecturing me, but now I know you weren't, so, yay.
Or when I say that it was not written like that, it was not intended at that I needed to educate you or set up this context for your benefit. It's really just my
Yeah,
way.
plus I think this happened like at least 4 times in the past where you wrote something and I took it that way and then you said no. So I also should kind of think back to those previous times. It's like, oh no, he didn't. I should know how you write by this point. So, but yeah, I like to be cantankerous and loud. So, you know, just kind of get used to that as well. I'll get used to your ways and maybe you get used to my ways. So many of the best things in the videos are impromptu, completely unplanned. So I kind of want to, you know, it's hokey to give myself props, but this is my favorite part of this video coming up here.
What if no one shows up to my birthday party? It was like just all these stupid cultural setups. These birthdays are cultural setups to exacerbate your stupid social needs even more. That's my kind of, it's the Bolshevik conspiracy theory or whatever. The Jews set up the birthday so that we all feel FOMO stronger. Yeah, I understand what it's like. I grew out of it, but
they didn't. But they didn't do any of the other stupid shit too. But you know, if there's stupid shit, yeah. But what about this kind of stupid shit? No one ever thinks to accuse them of this. But you know, if they were to do this, I'd have even more. If they were guilty of this cultural Bolshevism, then whatever else they're doing, whatever, you know, you want to enslave me monetarily, I don't care. But it don't fucking make me feel FOMO because of the birthday status thing. But also, there was 2023 audios about the birthday problem. And wait till I get into the happy birthday song. Here I didn't mean to derail into the birthday thing anyway, but I derailed only a bit. There's more from 2023 where I go off on people for the happy birthday song. And especially in the 90s when like they recorded themselves singing that song. You know, they never recorded themselves kind of routinely the way people record themselves now. But like in early 90s, mid 90s, you know, all the way even into 2000s, like people would get that camcorder out during the birthdays. And most of what people recorded themselves doing was singing that awful song. Singing that one of the worst possible, and you can tell they don't want to sing it either. They don't want to sing it. But they sing it because it's the thing to do. And so they record themselves at their worst, and it's one of the only times they record themselves. I watched America's Funniest Home Videos, so you see it a lot on those, you know, when then something breaks as everyone's singing. But it's like, they're singing the worst thing ever and recording themselves doing so. I go off on it more in those audios, but yeah, I just kind of have to just throw that in here as well. How could no one figure it out? You know, sing. If you're gonna record yourself singing, sing something you actually like to sing. But no, because if you don't sing the stupid happy birthday song for the birthday boy, then you're the asshole. Just all these freaking social landmines. These are all social landmines, creating problems out of nothing. If I just don't want to sing the stupid fucking happy birthday song, like I'm portrayed as the asshole. It's like, no, it's a god awful song. Let's just hear it one more time.
Cultural setups to exacerbate your stupid social needs even more.
Or just to get you in trouble if you don't want to sing the stupid happy birthday song. It's like, it means you have ill will for the birthday boy. It's like, I don't have ill will for the birthday boy. It's just a god-awful song. And you're recording. Like, I wouldn't sing it anyway, but like, if you're recording me with a camcorder, I'm doubly not singing it.
My kind of, it's the bullshit.
And also, you know, when like, you know, you try to blow out all those candles, and let's say you're 14 or 15 or even 16, like the more candles there is, the harder you have to blow, the more chances are that your spit's gonna end up on the cake. So like if you go to birthdays and the birthday person blows out the candles and there's a bunch of candles, they have to blow really hard, like odds are you're eating that cake, you're eating little bits of their spit. You're eating little bits of their spit. Damn you Jews! Why did you arrange it so that we eat little bits of each other's spit?
The conspiracy theory or whatever. The Jews set up the birthday so that we all feel FOMO stronger.
Yeah, and eat bits of the birthday boys or girls' spit because they blow hard on the candles. But no one can think about that critically because it doesn't have political implications. So let's not think about anything critically that doesn't have political implications. You fucking dullards. 3, 2, 1. It's actually seeing the static. Let's do a bit more on Ben.
Gender, because the word sex and gender gets mixed up a lot in this debate, unfortunately. Gender, i.e. a set of culture.
And I had it down at one point. I had it down. I knew exactly how I wanted gender to be used, and I knew exactly how sex ought to be used. And then I made a few videos, and then other people made some videos, and then the rest of the Volk didn't play along. And then I forgot it's been that long. So I kind of myself use it interchangeably now because it's just been that long.
Cultural norms, whether that be aesthetic or the roles that males and females.
Yeah, there's just certain things where it's like I kept the things apart with words, and then like mass culture didn't kind of tag along, even though years passed and decades passed. And then I kind of caved and just started using it interchangeably as well. That happened with other words too. You know, you just kind of give up.
The emotions that are generally seen to be more masculine or feminine absolutely are on a gradient. But again, if we're moving towards that fully progressive society that accepts anybody for whoever they are, then you don't need...
They accept it in the streets, but not between the sheets, right? So the trans people are motivated by their own selection pressures, right? Just like heteronormative people, right? The reason they need to look the part, right? Whatever, for a guy, you know, musculature, and just spend ungodly number of hours of their lives wasting away in the gym lifting heavy object so they can look the part, because they get it. They feel the selection pressure. That's why dames, you know, overconsume on cosmetics and all that shit. It's that kind of, though in their case they feel it less, right? Because they don't, like, you know, they're not going to have a hard time the way the guys are, so they just but they want the cream of the crop, so that's why they feel the selection pressure, not just to go out and do some fuckery, but to do the fuckery with the specific types of men they want to do the fuckery with. You know, there's all kinds of evil psych explanations of it. So they overconsume on the cosmetics and even get, you know, these obscene BBL surgeries and stuff like that. Men, you know, slave away in the gym, and what else? Buy specific kind of shirts that, you know, askmen.com say are in, you know, and all this other stupid wardrobe crap. Cologne, like if you like perfume more than cologne, you're still supposed to wear the cologne because cologne's for men and perfume's for women. All this shit people mindlessly conform to because of selection pressure. And we kind of turn a blind eye to it when it's heteronormative contexts. But, you know, if we're going to do it in heteronormative context, we should also, like, do it in trans context. So it matters for the trans to look the part, right? Blaire White probably wants to have sex and be sexually validated by a bunch of heteronormative men. That figures into it. I don't know if this has been confessed by, like, the typical trans person, but that's what it is. It won't just do to feel it and to be accepted by society for feeling it, to feel like a trans dame. No, Blaire White must look the part of the trans dame so that Blaire White can get some fuckery going on with heterosexual men. And not just any old heteros. Even as a trans, she won't be told beggars can't be choosers. So that's why she'll put in all those, you know, crazy, you know, whatever all that entails, right? Is even the trans won't do the beggars can't be choosers thing. And we'll make it so that I'm not going to be a beggar. I'm going to go the next mile to make myself look as convincing as possible, right? I was wrong very often when I was watching Murray in terms of man or woman. Maybe Murray wasn't aired in the UK, but Murray was aired in the US and Canada. It was this really popular kind of, you know, lowbrow talk show, maybe as lowbrow as Jerry Springer. And there was a genre of it, and it's like, is it a man or a woman? And, you know, it's not like we found out things about the person. No, we just looked at the person, and we had to, like, figure out man or woman. And, you know, I'd answer wrong often, and it kind of blew my mind. You know, so it's the look part is very important, just as looks are important elsewhere, right? So, like, if your idyllic points are going to be applied consistently, then you should just say to every single person, whoever feels selection pressure as such, that they ought not change anything about their lifestyle to comply to that selection pressure. And to, you know, engage in the act of mating, but preferably not without the condom, preferably with the condom.
Need to alter your physicality if you have parts of yourself on the gradient that are closer to the opposite sex, that are typically seen as closer to the opposite sex.
I mean, you've got the heart of gold. You'd accept anyone, but there's still, right? Anyone who's, whatever, melodramatic as a man, you know, stoical as a woman, that doesn't ruffle your feathers at all. That doesn't ruffle my feathers at all either. Problem is, it's about the act of mating and where exactly, you know, you're going to fall on the hierarchy with who is willing to mate with you and who isn't willing to mate with you. And that's why they go the next mile. Trans dames want to mate with heterosexual men. And you know, kind of, I would imagine the opposite is the case too, with a trans gentleman want to mate with heterosexual women.
Right? A tearful, emotional male, or a hard.
I guess there are kind of gay trans people, right? There are, yeah. So it's like, you know, there could be a Blaire White who's then also a lesbian, right? But here I'm just kind of trying to keep it simple enough.
Objective, detached female, right? Those two people should be completely, absolutely valid in society. Like, I don't think anybody.
Yeah, you've got the heart of gold, but you're not keeping in mind, you know, things that are accepted in the streets versus things that are very much not accepted between the sheets, right? Even though I'm trying to do this ally thing, you know, I wouldn't be comfortable, even if I see trans name, but then it's like, no, I wouldn't, just because my, you know, those kind of heteronormative taboos weigh too heavily on my psyche. You know, I wouldn't do anything even if I had, you know, a raging heart on. I wouldn't.
I think many people in this world really give a shit or have the pitchforks ready to protest against, oh, there's men that cry, or there's women that don't cry, or pick any other.
Maybe not so far as, you know, pitchforks, but, you know, men can cry if they're talented, right? So if they write some beautiful poem, or even, you know, even like Eminem, you know, wrote the occasional vulnerable rap song, you know, but then like the next rap song was like, he's talking about how he's invincible and indestructible and he's got his D12 gang. But then he'd go back to like, the next track would be the vulnerable track again. It's like, how the fuck does this make sense? You can't, oh no, you can't flip-flop between vulnerability and invulnerability. As a man, you can, but you have to be talented. Musically, in some way, then men can be all kinds of inconsistent, you know, wimps and, you know, hardcore, or just wimps, right? Like the typical poet is just a wimp, but it's okay because he's talented at poetry. But the untalented man can't. If the untalented man cries, no one will give a shit, or he'll be ostracized. The untalented, unpopular man, let's say, you know, like I guess some of the men who cry are untalented. Like Jordan Peterson is not talented, but he's popular, so it's okay that he cries. He's popular as a, you know, ultra partisan. So it's like, you know, as long as you do like the ultra partisan thing, then I guess also you can cry. But that's not a talent. But like the untalented man who doesn't engage in partisan politics, yeah, no, if he cries, no one's gonna give a shit. Or at worst, he'll be ostracized. And he'll be told he's creepy.
Trope to split between two.
You know, not by everyone, but, you know, it'll be one of those. Let's tuck him away if we can do it. Let's tuck him away.
But there is no movement to eradicate that occurring. And that is the society that we're moving towards. Again, I repeat myself, but I just find it so antithetical to that idea. This whole trans thing that says...
How much did the tattoos hurt? Did the tattoos hurt? I'm guessing they didn't hurt that much because you got them like over and over, right? I'm guessing you didn't get all these at the same time. Wonder if, yeah, just don't get how the payoff can be that worthy of the pain.
Is it, you know, those feelings that you have that are on the spectrum close to...
See, you're more macho than you give on. You got those that I wouldn't put myself. That little needle thing, no fucking way. Don't shy away from your macho-ness, Ben. You get tattoos, you're macho enough.
Opposite sex. In order for that to be valid, you need to emulate the opposite sex physically. Because right now, as a bearded, bald bloke with a penis, you shouldn't be crying. You shouldn't be feeling all gooey when you see kittens or whatever else femaleness is supposed to represent. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, some people, oh, I gotta turn the volume down because he's got me much louder than he is, so I gotta turn the volume down. Yeah, I mean, there's open-minded people who, they won't, even on the conscious level, they won't judge you, but it's the subconscious judgment that then disadvantages you in that, in the SMV mating pool, right? And you're right, they shouldn't care then either, but it's a tall ask. So yeah, I guess we might agree if you can just see this all-important point about why they go the next mile. They go the next mile because they wanna have their own kind of SMV, right? Blaire White wants to have her own kind of SMV in the eyes of heterosexual men, assuming she's not a lesbo, right? As a, you know, trans person. So assuming she's a kind of straight trans person who's transitioned, it's all about how she's perceived by heterosexual men. and probably subtypes of heterosexual men.
We all have these parts. The parts are, because of modern medicine and modern, extreme operations, the parts are doable and unscrewable and all kinds of people do all kinds of stuff. It's phenotypic, right? So what? Give it a decade or two and maybe men will have wombs, right? We went back 100.
Even if future doctors are able to implant a womb into a male body, which would require a hell of a lot of drugs to make sure that the body does not reject that foreign tissue. A lot of this complications with that kind of procedure. But even if they're able to do that, they ain't gonna be able to give birth. It's gonna have to be cesarean because you ain't getting a baby through male hips.
Well, wasn't that supposed to be the better thing anyway, right? The cesarean section. I read stuff. It's like, yeah, might as well do that more often. It's probably good for the vag for her not to. Right, and now I'm just gonna try everything I can not to go off on a tangent about, why do women do that? It's an infant, but it's still so fucking big. It's like the biggest. It's like finding the biggest brick in history, and shoving it up your vagina and then all to shove it back out. That's what like giving birth is. It's like the biggest brick in history, and it's like I'm gonna lodge it in myself and then dislodge it. It's like, why would they do that? But sorry, it's a tangent.
Even if there was a tube for it to come out of, that's going to destroy some male hips. It has to be cesarean, and it won't make them female. It'll just be a man who's had some very high-tech medical procedures done to him to force his body to partially do something that females do naturally. It doesn't mean he's changed sex. It really doesn't. It's still cosmetic. It's still superficial.
Yeah, I'll just double down and say we all understand that there's these different dimensions, of maleness and femaleness. The anatomy stuff is important. It's why, no one was non-pulsed when Murray brought on all those, trans cases and just had the audience look and guess, looking and then guessing based on looking, not, running any kind of other tests, like what is the T level of the person, what is the estrogen level or whatever. No, it was just look. And none of us were like, we didn't find it unintelligible that the challenge to discern whether it's a man or a woman was a kind of look at them and then discern whether it's a man or a woman. So you want to say men and women are these non-visual categories. Okay, I guess we just have a cul-de-sac, which is fine.
Even though,
I'll never be convinced that the visual aspect is 0% of what it means to be man versus woman.
That, if that ever happens, that'll be obviously very high level procedure, very complicated, but it will also come with very high risks.
And, in the chromosomes themselves, just give it enough time. Like, a century ago, would we have thought a century ago, the BBL, we would have thought, no, it's science fiction. We would have thought the BBL was science fiction a century ago. Or some of these other things they do, like, what is it? Restorative something, restorative. We do a lot of restorative something that would have seemed inconceivable. So yeah, maybe chromosomes will themselves change if given enough time. I wouldn't bet any money on it, but then it's not a draw if they're able to literally change you. Like there's some kind of Trekkie booth you step into, and you step in a man, and you step out on the other planet, whatever. On Mars, you step out of it a woman.
a need to constantly maintain that.
Because it'll be the future, so Mars will be a thing. Mars will be planet Elon. It'll be planet Elon.
Via medication and procedures, it won't just be put a womb in and let them go and have a kid. Right? Anyway, but it still doesn't change their sex. It's just high-level medical procedures. I could have robot fingers put onto my hand if I lose it. I'm still a human. I just have robot fingers. I don't know if that's the greatest comparison.
Well, there's a kind of comparison I want to do that's also not the greatest comparison, but just, the rhetorical thing. We don't always say adopted parents or adoptive parents with these kids who don't live with their biological parents, but were adopted. We just say, they're parents. The kid just says my mom or my dad, and we don't always swoop in to say, no, it's not your actual dad. It's not your actual dad. Your actual dad's your biological dad. Your actual mom's your biological mom. No, we just accept that, yes, those parents, whatever, foster or something else, there was the literal adoptee thing. where all the paperwork was signed, and then the kid's living with parents who are not in any way biologically related to the kid. But they love the kid and they take care of the kid. And so the kid says, in a very important sense, you guys are my real parents. My biological parents aren't my real parents. And, you know, the culture is not like raising a fuss over that. We just accept it. So, you know, it's not perfect comparison to the trans thing. But yeah, it's just someone really does put in the effort, like those adopted parents put in the effort. If someone puts in the effort to the level of Blaire White, it's like, yeah, I'll use, she. I won't just dwell on the fact that, it wasn't always a she. Just like I won't dwell on the fact that that kid's not actually living with the kid's parents. And they're just two strangers who, love the kid more than the kid's, biological parents do. That kind of thing.
Years, look at all the shit that's happening right now. Went back 100 years, people would have thought it's magic, but no, it's not magic. It's modern medicine. So maybe, in 100 years, yeah, maybe men will be able to have wombs implanted. At some point, right, enough.
I know you're still an anti-natalist, so I mean, I know you wouldn't support. I'm just joking here. I know you wouldn't support that no veil if everybody's able to have fucking kids, not just females. That's a scary dystopian.
Yeah, it was just a descriptive kind of what's in the realm of possibility. What's in the realm of possibility? But it's important. It's all the sweeter when a person who can have kids declines to have kids. That's the true turning away of the will. If you can't do it, then you're like, I don't know. You're like, whatever, you're bragging about something that you got no business bragging about since you couldn't do the thing anyway, that you declined to do.
Or an anti-natalist to think about.
Things will be able to be implanted where it's not going to seem absurd. What's this birth stuff? What kind of just world bullshit do you have going on in your brain? Where you think that's when, and again, setting all the legal stuff aside, you'll see the legal commentary. That's the video coming up. That's going to be in.
Yeah, okay, so this has gone on for a while. I might do a bit more on Ben, but this is over 17 minutes, and I have no idea where to put it.
I was going through all of this when I visited the Vice President's residence for the first time. As I approached Vice President Harris for our official photo, she turned to me and asked, "What's wrong?" Mind you, we'd never met, but she saw right through me. She saw the distress. I immediately began crying.
Women. I mean, right? It's a freebie. It's the other kind of freebie. It's the emotional free. They get emotional freebies.
And the most powerful woman in the world wiped my tears and listened.
You can't. Even in the Dem party, it's supposed to be the soy party, but forget about it. Even a Dem male who, he gets up and he does this. No. Men don't get freebies. Not the emotional kind. Nor should they get it. You shouldn't break out that easily. Break out? No. You shouldn't break down that easily. But the other freebies are cool. The material freebies.
It's so hard for me to tell this story. She then said, among other things, you are exactly where God wants you. Your district chose you because they...
And they're more delusional when it comes to that kind of stuff, too.
Baronato is better known by her WWE ring name, Sonya Deville. With a knife from his pocket, Thomas cuts a square in the screen.
WWE star stalker interrogated after getting caught trying to kidnap her. Yeah, this channel is going to be the gift that keeps on giving, at least insofar as I keep doing gender commentary. So much crime, and so like the worst of crime, more calculated, worst of the worst crime is gendered.
And steps onto the Total Diva star's private property. It's 2:43 a.m. when Thomas opens the back sliding glass door and the home security system is triggered. Baronato hears the alarm and peers out a window. She sees a man in her backyard. Baronato and her friend, a fellow WWE star who goes by the name Mandy Rose, escape the property and call 911. When police arrive at the scene, they find Thomas inside the home. He has with him a knife, duct tape, plastic zip ties, and mace. Thomas is taken into
Simp went to Mace Truth.
Custody in Tampa, where he's questioned by...
See, I'm even-handed.
Detectives.
But more often it's Dame who goes to Mace Truth. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to do a whole thing on this. Just, it's just of all the stupid obsessions, of all the stupid, pathetic obsessions, it's peak patheticism. Buddy, you're going to go down in the Hall of Fame of peak patheticism.
It's about tonight, related to Apparently be in charge of burglary. They were explaining that to you.
A WWE star.
Yeah. Before I can even talk to you about that, I gotta read your rights. It's the same in South Carolina as it is in Florida. No different. So has anyone...
Nah, he's barefoot.
Your rights? No, not yet. Has anyone discussed your rights with you? Not yet. Okay. I understand you're willing to talk. You can see that this is an environment that isn't going to be... No one's going to be yelling, screaming at you.
There's nothing to say. He's just plain pathetic.
I'm not going to do that. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm just here to get an understanding and figure out why this all occurred and how it happened. Where does it really occur? I'll say right now. Well,
Why don't you stalk me, right? I got like a lot of good videos that'll probably, expand your horizons. Why don't you stalk me?
Again, I need to give you an opportunity. I got to read these to you. Yeah, so before you make a statement, I need to make sure.
No, he wouldn't stalk me because I'm not voluptuous.
You understand. And just so you're aware that this recorded. This is an interview that'll be audio and visual.
But if you stalked me, like maybe not like physically stalked, but if you like just kept like coming back to my channel and watching this shit, like you'd learn so much. You'd learn that. You'd learn to unobsess, not just to not do the stupid thing where you try to, but you'd learn to just stop obsessing over.
These rights I'll go through real quickly, and then you can tell me whatever you want.
This is one of those segments I feel that, because I don't know, this is a cold watch, so I don't know what I'm getting into, but I feel it's one of those segments that the sooner I stop, the less inappropriate things I'll say, so I'll just stop. I left a comment. It's not a music video. And nonetheless, I left a comment. I can't remember the last time that's happened. If I'm commenting on other YouTube stuff these days, it's not these other people who yak. It's the music stuff, just to give props to great, obscure music stuff. But here, let's see what I say. This should be taught to boys during sex ed, but too many people would flip out. Yeah, so what do you think it's about? What do you think it's about? It's the truth about strip clubs. So of course I'm starting off saying this should be taught to boys during sex ed, but too many people would flip out, claiming it's irrelevant or something. It's a guy who did some bouncing. I'd say it's pathological to deny just how relevant it is. Only way to starve the beast is to give these lads, I said lads because he's the UK guy, he sounds British, is to give these, so I comport myself to the vibe of the video. Ordinarily I don't say lads, but I'll say lads when, the vibe in the video is, it's the kind of guy who'd say lads. Only way to starve the beast is to give these lads the facts in advance. And see, it shouldn't be necessary to give them the facts in advance. You should be like me. You should just be able to sniff out from afar, from like several blocks. You kind of see the strip joint, and you should just be able to sniff out the sleaziness. It should be like, the magnetic force just keeps you away. The magnetic force just keeps you away. The sleazy magnetic force of it just keeps you away. But unfortunately, no. Some boys have to be taught. Only way to starve the beast is to give these lads the facts in advance when they're young and can absorb it better. Would be nice if aversion to all such joints was inborn in males. Clearly it's not. Just be honest with boys about male disposability, whether in the battlefield or with these exotic transactions. It took a lot for me to not go off on a tangent and say, oh, and another thing, there's this other male identity disposability. But if I got into that, the comment would have been like a thesis. So I kind of left a short-ish comment. But yeah, one of the things I love about YouTube is that it has given people like yourself the ability to share your stories instead of only having to listen to talking heads spewing the approved propaganda. Yeah, fair enough. And he loved it. I wonder if he'll love my comment. I hope he loves my comment, because my comment's even better. Let's hear what he says.
You can also pay for what's called a sit-down, which is where the clubs make a hell of a lot of money, because the guys simply pay these girls to sit there, have drinks with them and talk to them, and kind of behave like a girlfriend would behave. So most of the girls at second and third...
Like, how do you do that, but then, like, if someone just farts in your face, like, you would be bothered by it. Like, so you get it. If someone farts in your face, it's an indignity. But if you pay as a man, I don't care how attractive you find her. If you pay as a man, just in this ultra, formal environment, nothing's really, it's all transactional. But, like, you can't see, like, that's even worse than someone farting in your face. You're paying for someone else's company. Like, how can you get one and not get the other? Like, what is wrong with the male brain? Like, does the boner actually, in some physiological way, does the boner, like, I don't know, intrude on the amygdala or whatever? Like, what?
Names. So the guy, this sort of lonely type guy would sit down with the girl, and her name was, say, Roxy, and then he would sort of get talking to her and he would say, oh, I bet your name's not really Roxy. You know, if you really liked me like you say you do, you would tell me your real name. And she would say, oh, fair enough. You know, I do really like you. You're just the kind of guy that I've always dreamed of. My real name's Claire. So, of course, he then is very happy because he thinks he's got some sort of emotional relationship going on with this girl. And he would generally come up to me when I'm working and say, oh, you never guess what, mate, you know, this girl's told me her real name and she really likes me. I think I'm in with a chance. And I'd say, well, okay, bud, you know, cool. And
no, you should have told him the truth. You should. I guess you worked for the outfit, so you couldn't tell him the truth.
I sort of break the...
you would have been a bad employee if you spouted truth. If you dropped the black pill, you would have been a bad employee.
The myth, if you like. And then he would spend more money, and most of these guys...
Because, you know, you're not so praiseworthy then, are you? You know, all these people giving you props, but, you know, you had to wait to leave that line of work to, you know, drop the black pills. Which is good. It's better than just staying silent, right? You know, the president who writes the memoirs and talks about all the shitty things he did is better than the president who doesn't write his memoirs. So I guess you're kind of the bouncer who's writing his memoirs here.
Weren't rich, so they would spend vast amounts of money that they could not afford to spend. You know, it was pretty sad to watch.
Yeah.
And some of them cried on me on the way out. You know, at the end of the night, they would say, I've spent all my rent money, I don't know what I'm going to do, you know, I'm in love with this girl. And they would come back week after week after week after week, and they would continue doing the same thing. And in the end, you know, some of them would find out, well, I don't think your name is Claire. You know, I asked around the club, and some of the other girls said it wasn't. Then the third name comes out, well, actually, my name's Mary, you know, and then the guy's happy again because he thinks he's really got to the truth this time. And that would just continue, and the girls would generally tell these...
Yeah, I'd love to, you know, vet for IQ scores. Like, every man who's ever stepped into a strip joint or whatever else exists that's in that kind of, you know, massage parlors, and then something happens. I just love to see if maybe it's... I don't know, maybe I'm wrong to assume that, you know, sex ed, if they just taught it all in sex ed, you know, the beast would be starved. I don't know. Maybe it's just like a, you know, room temperature IQ men. Maybe that's what it is. But then, you know, they're the homely men. He didn't say homely, but that's kind of what he wanted to get at. But he didn't. He was too nice of an ex-bouncer to say it. They're the homely-looking men.
Guys.
He said they don't have social skills.
Hey, you know, I'll meet you outside of the club. I'll meet you next week, and you know, and then next week will come, and I can't meet you.
It's like Butters. Yeah, remember Raisins? That shit came out in 2004. It's the Raisins episode. You know, yeah, it takes someone as naive as Butters, which I guess Butters doesn't really have a low IQ, does he? No, Butters just trusting. So it's like the man who grows up and he's every bit as trusting and naive as Butters. Yeah. So it is. I'd like to think this would help. I'd like to think sex ed would help. The overgrown Butters syndrome.
This week, I've got a doctor's appointment. There would always be reasons why the girls couldn't meet these guys, but they would just keep them hanging on for the longest amounts of time.
The dame went to Mace Truth.
And eventually these guys would...
And I guess in the UK, Lass went to Mace Truth.
Kind of, you know, catch on to the fact that they were never going to get an actual date with this girl, that they had just wasted all their money, and that was the end of that. The girls were very, very good at taking money off of these guys like that, and certainly the power game there was in the hands of the girls taking the money. It was not in the hands of these guys.
But, you know, assume that she just has an epiphany and then she actually spends, you know, a lot of time with him after she discloses to him that, like, I've been using you for years or however long, it's the average. Like, you know, there's at least a subset of them after they've been told they've been used for money, you know, but she's still, you know, young and fit enough. Like, they would still go for it. They would still do it after she discloses to them that she's used them. But it's like, okay, but now I'll stop using you. We can have a relationship. Like, right after she's disclosed to him, like, you've just been a pawn. But now I don't want you to be a pawn anymore. Like, at least a subset of men, of the overgrown Butters, they'd fucking go for it.
Then you had, like, the other 10% that would come in that would be, like, stag groups.
And, like, Buddhists would tell those men, like, yes, it's good. It's good. You don't hold a grudge. It's good. You're being, you know, we're all one. We're all one. Everything is illusion. Go be a sucker.
Maybe, like, drug dealers, like, small-time drug dealers would come in there thinking they could, like, chat up the girls and take them off and whatever. And just, like, flashy guys that would come in. And they generally were not good customers because most of those guys had a big ego. So most of those guys believed that they didn't need to pay for female attention, which probably some of them didn't. And therefore, they weren't going to pay for female attention. They were there to chat up the girls, to show off, and to try and persuade the girls to...
Yeah, bruv ain't no Butters.
to leave with them, or to spend time with them outside of the club, and maybe sometimes they would have a couple of dances, but that would generally be right at the end of the night, when they kind of realised that not much else was happening. And
so yeah, you gotta listen to this whole thing. You gotta listen to this whole thing. I'm gonna create a playlist called Dame Went to Mace Truth, and this guy's video is going first in that playlist. Oh God! And then when they all turn on each other, the stripper lasses, when they turn on each other, and he came home all clawed because he was trying to break up their fights. Oh, you gotta listen to this. You gotta listen to this. It's great. Yeah, that one. That's still a good few videos away, but I broached something. There's something that's coming up next in this here video, but I thought as I was recording it earlier this morning, and I thought I would just put it in here, but this one's too long. So I broached something that's only kind of continuous within this, but it can make sense within Better Limp Than Simp if I just play an excerpt from this here long delayed video. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna play an excerpt. It's about fathers. So here's me. You know, this will hopefully be up sooner than later. Men aren't much wiser. Will hopefully be up sooner than later, but it can't go next. So I'm just gonna play an excerpt from it so that what I do next is continuous. Because as I was recording this earlier this morning, I was in the mindset of kind of adding to this video, but this is not a video that I can justify adding anything more to. This video is complete. So it's about fathers.
It could be that in many of these cases, in a non-trivial number of these cases where the kid ends up in juvie.
I'm a little winded here because I disrupted a jog. I started this out jogging, and then I'm like, I gotta get off the treadmill because like, no, this is too serious a topic for me to do it justice as I'm jogging. That's what happened here. So I'm a little winded.
Or prison as an adult. The single variable changer, the single thing that would have changed it is had there been a father within the household. Some non-trivial number of cases. This is as close as you're gonna get from me to a mea culpa.
Mea culpa because I slightly adjusted my position here and saying the father role is more of a role than I gave credit in the, you know, familialism reduction video, familial reductionism video from like back in summer 2020 that YouTube wiped out for some reason that I still don't understand why they wiped out. So, you know, I start off talking about that video and then I say, well, you know, maybe I put it too strongly that the father factor is like nearly a non-factor. No, it's just hard to get all these, you know, there's these, you know, knots when it comes to the statistics. There are these statistical knots that are hard to kind of undo to figure out what's causal versus what's not. Certainly in the case of personality disorders, like the father ain't gonna make the kind of difference that all these tradcons think the father is gonna make. Like your kid's a psychopath, your kid's gonna grow up to be a psychopath. The father ain't gonna save those boys. But, you know, in some cases, the father might save the boys. So here I'm talking about that, and I'm kind of, you know, ceding a little ground.
I still think you guys aren't asking so many of the crucial questions.
But then the moment I cede ground, I reprimand them. Why do I reprimand them? I explain it here.
Like the quality of the father. You're just so much more concerned with, like, if I can just give half of those kids, or 1/3 of the
fatherless boys here, I mean fatherless boys.
Those kids, a guaranteed quality father versus
1/3 a guaranteed quality father.
If 2/3 of them any old father like randomly picked out of a draw, I would opt for the first. Give 2/3, give 1/3 of all fatherless boys a quality father, and here by quality I mean based. You guys are so seemingly detached from how important it is to have a based person. For a boy to have a based person, whether it's a father or some other individual.
It probably does need to be a father because the boy will be comparative. Because like if all the other boys have fathers, it's like, oh, it has to be the father. But you know, if the boy's rational, it doesn't necessarily have to be the father. It just has to be a lone-based voice that's influential in the boy's life. But for the purposes of kind of placating the tradcons, let's just say it has to be a father. But they would deny it even then. I think the typical tradcon would say if we can give, you know, like 2/3 boys, just randos as fathers, we don't know whether they're based or not, that's better than giving 1/3 of them acutely based fathers. So that's kind of, you know, that's my big challenge. I think they're wrong, and I'm going to go on to argue that. But let's do a few more seconds of this before I go on to argue that. This morning, I was just in the mood to add to this, and then I realized I can't add to this anymore. This is very long, so I'll just put what I recorded this morning in this one, in Better Limp Than Simp. And I think it's like, it's such a, like, no one draws the divisions this way, right? But like, I think my position is the minority position. I think people think, like, because people think the population is, you know, nowhere near as diluted as it is, male and female, that therefore it's better to give just as many boys as possible, as many fathers. Like if they're a fatherless boy, just maximize the amount of fathers you give to fatherless boys. Whereas I'm saying no, it's far more important to do quality control for the father, even if it results in, you know, less boys having fathers. Because, like, boys will talk among each other. You know, the boys can influence each other.
Male or female, I don't think it's that important, but insofar as there's someone who is based, I would give them a based father if it's a third of them, as opposed to 2/3, but it's just like a random draw out of the population.
Okay, I think I've set it up enough. So now, with that in mind, what's next will seem to flow. It'll be continuous. Whereas if I didn't do this, explaining what's going on, like, it just wouldn't make sense what I'm about to do next. But yeah, it's another outside one. So hooray for outside ones. Hooray for traffic. And hooray for me yelling to try to drown out the traffic. Because yeah, there's a lot of that coming up.
But why did I say it's so important to give boys, specifically based fathers? I meant what I said. Of all fatherless boys, if I can give 1/3 of them based fathers or 2/3 any old father, you know, I'd choose the former. I meant what I said with every fiber of my being, because I see how important it is in terms of the type of talks that'll take place between boys and their based fathers versus the types of talks that'll take place between boys and their non-based rando daddies who have certain kinds of, you know, the non-based man, insofar as he's a father, he has certain kinds of ambitions for his son that aren't necessarily in the son's best interest. Whereas the based father will know it's about that boy's individuality and then soon-to-be man's own individuality. He'll give him whatever advice fits to suit that individuality. The based father can sniff out his son's individuality in the way the non-based father can't. So it's going to come down to the talk about women. And the based man will just tell his son more black-pilled truths about women than will the non-based father. Did I say son a second ago? Obviously I meant father. And that's crucial because the distinction also comes down to the fact that, you know, the non-based father will just want, above all else, for his son to be experienced. And certain kinds of advice that's black-pilled are very disadvantageous to racking up a body count and then choosing the best among them, right? Your son's far more likely to have a haram insofar as he keeps the black shit, you know, within the brain, the black-pilled shit within the brain. So of all the fatherless boys right now, whether daddy is in prison, whether daddy got shot, whether daddy just straight up ran off, right? Insofar as there's all these fatherless boys that gets called an epidemic, especially by the tradcons. I meant what I said. 1/3 of them based fathers, it would do maledom. It would do maledom better to give 1/3 of them based fathers, because then they can spread it among their male friends who might not have fathers at all, but they can spread these black pill truths are just gonna spread faster. You know, the truth is man above all for her is a utility. Most men will be the backup plan. Certainly in the West. Maybe it applies every bit as much in the East, and it's just a lack of opportunity. In the typical Eastern woman, who the fuck knows? But the based father will be able to explain this. The based father will not have, above all, the kind of ambition for his son as species servant. The based father, though he, you know, may have figured out that, oh shit, it was a mistake to do this. The based father will be willing to tell his son the whole story, and because he himself will be able to accept the whole story about women, not just certain convenient facts, not just certain omissions that lead to absurd doctrines like gender complementarianism, you know, the tradcon view that yes, men and women have mutually exclusive but complementary roles. No, that's just because that tradcon wants to be a useful tool so he can up his body count or be more select or whatever it is. But it's about him and how he's perceived in the eye of woman. This is what drives tradcon men above any other, you know, official thing they say, thing that they say out loud, even things that they admit to each other. Well, it's so evident to me. It's why they're willing to duel and why they're obsessed and why they're impressed with someone like Tate and want honor culture back. It's because above all, it's how they appear in her eyes. Whether she's wifey or whether she's just one of the ones he's got his eyes set on. He chooses one, you know, infatuation, but it can rise to the level of passionate love. He chooses one, and then how she, and thereby many of her friends, because he knows, the tradcon man intuits that the way her girlfriends talk about you is going to greatly influence her. So it can't just be about impressing her. It's about impressing the whole clan. It drives them to take up so many of these. Look at this Walsh tweet. He's essentially screaming without screaming out the sentence. He doesn't scream out the sentence, but he is screaming the sentence, men are disposable, will be your utilities, will be your backup plans, will be your cannon fodder. He's essentially screaming it without using the sentence, will be your cannon fodder. It's all about how you appear in their eyes for the tradcon psyche. The tradcon psyche is masochistic on the gender front. Let's just understand that. The tradcon psyche is masochistic along gendered lines. If it means you're cannon fodder, if that ups your odds, if that impresses her, then you'll sign up to be the cannon fodder. That's your Matt Walshes of the world. Those aren't the kinds of base Matt Walsh is a father, sure, but he's not the based father. Based father will tell his son the whole truth and nothing but the truth, not just in reference to, how to get ahead. It's a rough world. They'll step on you, so maybe step on them before they step on you. But he'll also tell them the whole truth about women, every single black-pilled facet of that truth. That's a truth pie. It's got many individual black pills in it. The base father doesn't worry about his son's now potential deficits if he's outspoken about that thing where the clan can hear him. The base father will not be concerned with that, because the base father will not have his son in view as a species servant. The base father will have his son in view as the individual, in a way the non-based tradcon father won't. Just the sheer support a tweet like that got is all the evidence I need to give you of everything I just said. The man screams men are disposable. And he says it with such righteousness, because he needs for her to think him righteous in saying it. That's why he says it with such righteousness. He doesn't just, he doesn't have to grit as he says it. He says it righteously because he's sniffed out that that's entirely what the trad dame wants to hear. The progressive dame, on the surface level, she'll inveigh against it, but in her heart of hearts, even the progressive dame likes to hear this. Because who wants to die in a war? So you don't up your odds by dying in a war by arguing against that. No, you significantly diminish your odds of dying in a war. But on the surface level, even the proggy dame will say, no, men shouldn't die for us. In her heart, I don't think she believes it, if there were actually some invading hordes. And she's the kind who just overconsumes on makeup. Do you think she's gonna say, no, the rando male shouldn't die for me? Do you think that's what's in her heart? So the Walshes are right in terms of what's in her heart. The Walshes are right. The tradcon man is right. The tradcon man's problem is he's not aghast at that. He instead steps into it and wants his sons to step into it too, forevermore, for the rest of time. Males will be the gender serfs, females will be the lordship. Well, I say, fuck that. And hell, even if it came down to giving 1/5 of boys, I'll up this after this whole freaking rant. I'll up this to, if it came down to 1/5 get based fathers, or 4/5 get Matt Walsh, the Matt Walsh psyche as their father, telling them, yes, son, it is your job to protect. Just like the stupid French cartoon. Man ruins his perfectly good coat because there's a mud puddle. And Dame doesn't want to step over the mud puddle, and she won't. No, the man's supposed to not tell her, hey, just take a few extra steps. Just take a few extra steps around the puddle, and then 10 seconds later, you'll be back on your way. No. It's that tradcon surf psyche that says it's gallantry. You ought to be the gallantry gentleman and sacrifice your coat and let Dame walk over it. Even if dames acted 100 times better toward men, I wouldn't sacrifice my fucking coat. I wouldn't even do it for my mother.
Yeah, that. It's that. It's that, but ideologically. It's going above and beyond to be compatible ideologically and to not cause any kind of ruckus. Just be the convenient man. Be the convenient man. Yeah, that's what it is. I've nailed it. I referenced this whole, thing later on at the tail end of a rant. And, you can almost hear the speculations, like anyone who brings this up. So, it must be autistic to care about this. It must be autistic to care about this. It's like, no, because like figuratively, you know, it represents a lot, right? So like the average guy wouldn't do this literally nowadays, wouldn't go that far, but you know, in a certain respect, he'd do things that are even dumber. He would fail to, what is it? Pledge to halt fancies? Yeah, he would fail to pledge to halt fancies. But he needs to go one further. It needs to be pledge to halt boners. Right, now there's a challenge and a half, guy. You need to pledge not only to halt your fancies, pledge to halt boners. And keep your based coat. But no, to care about this is to be autistic, because that's a whoa. It's the second time I've done that. Second time I've done that. Phone falling out of the hand. Phone falling out of the hand, but that's okay because I recover it. Yeah, pledge to halt boners. That's the name. But I'm going to use this for the graphic too, without the audio. I'm going to use this for the graphic when I'm ranting about this problem. This is a huge problem. This is a huge problem. Not like literally, but you know, it represents a huge problem, and just not enough men are pledging to halt boners as well as fancies. Man, look at it go. Look at it go. And that's why boys need based fathers. There, to bring it back. You know, boys need based fathers because there's just so many men, whether or not they're fathers, who take the side of those who call them sick in the pelvis and who think they're being virtuous, right? It's like, you know, 40% likely, like a male came up with this. It's not about you. It's not about the bears. Please go to therapy. Yes, okay. So maybe the one who literally cries, who's unstoical, yeah, maybe he needs therapy. But certain other ones, well, we can just see that you guys are just playing foul statistically, right? And don't let anyone shift, you know? Don't let anyone say it's not a random sample, you know, not some male rando. It's some, you know, male that there's conditions on it. So the bear is only relatively better compared to the man with, like, there's conditions. Like, for example, he's, what can we say? He's an ex-gangbanger or, you know, now and again, gangbanger or a bear, you know? Okay, in that case, if it's a gangbanger, you know, ex-con, something like that. But that's them shifting the goalposts if any of them try to make it about that. No, it's about a rando male in the woods being inferior to a bear. Yeah, you need therapy if you have something negative to say about that. Being inferred that your gender is sick in the pelvis. Well, it's like they're the ones who like the Bondage movie. You know, they made the Bondage movie. You know, 2012, they made the Bondage movie go viral and, you know, #1 hit at the box office. So it's all guilty conscience on their part because they're fucked up enough to like the Bondage movie. And then, you know, let's make men pay for it. You know, we have male gazers. We like the stupid Bondage movie, and we have male gazers, and we'll flaunt it indirectly by, you know, saying, you know, the rando male is unsafe in the woods. Hey, a bear, how cute. A woman, listen carefully, son. Just stand up straight and tall and make a loud noise and it'll leave you alone. And keep your distance or she'll attack with sexual harassment allegations. I think that's a good finish. It's not known as an extreme sport, but I think it should be. It's about as risky as anything, right? There's kids who play like pee-wee hockey and they have to wear helmets. They have to wear helmets for that, but this is a gajillion times more dangerous and yet they don't have to wear helmets. How is this applicable to the video? Didn't I just say the video would end? What am I doing here? You'll figure it out in a few seconds here. But yeah, just kind of, you know, it should be an extreme sport. Take a vote. Who thinks this should be classified as one of those extreme sports? If you're ever going to have anyone, I mean, hell, even if you're going to have people, you know, legally obligated to wear seatbelts, they're legally obligated. You get stiff fines if you don't wear seatbelts in cars. You know, even if it's like 4 a.m., middle of nowhere, nothing's going on, you know, no other drivers, you still got to, cop pulls you over, you don't wear a seatbelt, stiff fines. But, you know, and you know, the pee-wee stuff, they got to wear helmets, but then these folks should definitely have to wear helmets. Yeah, it's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous lifestyle, this. It's a very dangerous lifestyle. Oh. But sometimes it's even more dangerous. Sometimes it's even more dangerous than certain other themes that this video is about, that I went too far back. But trust me, it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. Oh, should have chosen a bear. Should have chosen a bear to skate with. Should have chosen a bear. Fuck it, I'll include this. Finn.